Good Sunday, lovely people. Welcome to episode 21 of our reading of Hope, a Memoir of Survival in Cleveland by Amanda Berry and Gina DeJesus. We're nearing the end of it, and I'm here with my lovely, lovely co-reader, Cinnamon Girl. How you doing?
Hi, Lynn. I'm doing okay. Doing okay.
Doing okay? You sound a little unenthusiastic there.
I'm enthused about being here. So I'm
Oh,
really I'm really excited about finishing our book and having some closure to this. But I have to say, I have been feeling a little unsettled this week, and I think it's because of all of the stuff that's going on in our country right now. And I know we don't want to get into any of that, but I just have to acknowledge it because, yeah, it has been a very unsettling week for me.
yes, we can acknowledge our feelings and
We
our
can
feelings.
acknowledge our feelings. Yes.
I think no matter where you sit, it's unsettling. Yes.
Right? I know. It just such an odd, I mean, not even odd, uh, un un it, there, I don't even have words for it. I can't even talk about it. I don't have words, but yes, it's been such a strange and unsettling and just seeing everything that's happening. And I was listening to a speech that Kamala gave uh, during the campaign uh, time, and I just miss her so much. I have to say, I just have to say, she was so smart, and she really had a lot of things right on in terms of what can happen, what isn't going to happen, and how we should proceed forward. But anyway, that we'll put that aside. We're here for other things today.
Yeah, I mean, I do like to swerve off of politics as much as
Yes,
possible because it just closes people's minds. It just people's minds just shut off on in either direction, and it's just.
I know. And I'm sorry I brought it up. I just
Oh,
had
no,
to
no,
acknowledge.
no. I understand. I understand. It is very unsettling. I think, regardless of where you sit, it's unsettling. But
Yeah,
I
it's
also
there's
go
an
ahead.
uncertainty, around, I think, everything. And it goes beyond politics because obviously,
Yeah.
everything that's going on affects people's lives and how they move forward, and things that they, had thought they had in place in terms of, programs and support, and all of that may, go away. So it's bigger than that. It's the uncertainty for all of us, I think. But anyway,
Well,
yeah.
my position on, has been for years. If the internet didn't survive as it does, we wouldn't be in this. It's just because
Right.
because of the way that the internet wants everybody to be outrageous. You know, uh,
Yes.
it just incentivizes all of that behavior. And anyway,
Yeah, the controversy and the conflict absolutely
it just wants
fuels.
everybody to be pitted against each other.
Yeah, fuels the fire for the internet. There.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Solo angel mom. That's funny.
Yeah.
We need to have a vent session. I'm sorry you've been under the weather. I hope you're feeling
Yeah,
better.
I hope you feel better, Solo. Before we came on, I was just watching, so I'm always looking outward from what, like my last video was about how Frankie Ruzek Jr., the brother of Shanann Watts, won his lawsuit against Armchair Detective.
Right.
And but by the way, anybody who's listening now or listening later, he did come into the comment section and thank everybody for their kind words. So if you're one of those people, he says thank you, which was nice. I mean, I've
Oh,
never
nice.
ever talked to Frankie. It was the first time he's ever commented on any of my videos. I don't even know if he knows that I'm the same person that made videos on other channels about their family, but it was nice to see him, and I'm really glad for that outcome for that family. And it's like one more chink in the armor of that whole idea of, people using conspiracy theories to trash other people. Hey, Pointer Lover. It's just that people weaponizing the internet for conspiracy theories, especially at the worst time in people's lives. That's the big thing, you know.
Right.
That was what was happening with the Watts family, you know, the Rusek, Watts, whatever people, you know, taking advantage of the Watts need to get Chris out of jail and creating conspiracies online to get more money and views. And it was really gross. And it was just as prominent, if not more prominent at the time, because more people were home sitting on their asses during the C word. And uh and there had just been this big Netflix documentary that pulled a bunch of people into the Watts case, right at the time the pandemic hit. So hey, hippie chick. So there were all kinds of people, you know, sitting on their asses watching YouTube and just piling onto this into this, but so many people needing more money, you know, because they're losing their jobs and having, you know, or being laid off and waiting for their job to call them back. So they're coming online to make money. And the quickest way to make money is to do conspiracy theories. And man, the Watts case just was pummeled under that scenario. And it was really hard to watch. And still, you know, obviously cases now. Yeah. So, you know what, Solo? I'm glad you bring up Wade Wilson. Because I made a couple videos about Wade Wilson, which, you know, in all honesty, performed better view-wise than any of my recent videos. But I kind of turned away from it because at that point, I had gotten what I wanted. I had gone through all the videos, you know, all the jail calls that were available thus far, and collected the patterns of behavior and put them together. But more stuff has come out since then, and I kind of turned away from it and started focusing on all this lawsuit stuff and the shenanigans with the Sebastian Rogers case. Now there's more stuff going on. I feel like I need to turn back over to Wade Wilson and see the shenanigans that are being played off, because I really feel like those Wade Wilson wives have, you know, taken, I don't know, have just completely demolished the memories of the victims in his case. You know what I mean?
I totally agree. And I've been following the Wade Wilson thing since the beginning. And I have to say that there is, you know, there are so many twists and turns with this thing. And now, you know, because you can get the FOIA information, right? So you know, there are other creators who are, you know, purchasing the FOIA information. So there are call logs, there's, you know, everything he orders from his commissary. There are, of course, you know, the phone calls that you can get, you know, obviously, but the transcription of the phone calls. So it has become a huge, you know, I think, way for creators to, well, I mean, I think most of the ones that I follow are really about what you just said, that the wives have lost the whole, you know, they're so caught up in the whole Wade Wilson, you know, how he looks and freeing him. And somehow they're under the delusion that, you know, he's actually innocent and he got an unfair trial. But the creators that I follow are really about the victims and the, you know, the women and the children that are, you know, suffering, of course, as well, that have been left behind. So yeah, I mean, it just continues to unravel in kind of a weird, sick way. And, you know, he's now been, I forget the word, but you know, he's had so many infractions within jail. And so he can't, you know, he doesn't have access to the phone or to his tablet or anything like that. And I think it's very restrictive in terms of communication. So there's very little coming out at the moment because I think he's under restriction until like the middle of this year.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to it's similar to what happened with Chris Watts.
Exactly. Yes.
He pled guilty, you
Right.
know, and was already serving several life sentences when these people came in and grifted on the idea that he could get out of jail. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Because that's what they're doing. They raise all this fucking money saying that he has this new defense, and we saw his trial. We heard his confessions. This guy is a fucking pig, man. He is such a pig. And he's on restriction till hey, Justice Jane, he's on restriction till the end of May. Wow. So, and this is one thing I've never looked deeply into, and I get a little bit confused about. The jail calls were when he was in jail, but once he goes into prison, it's not as free flowing. The FOIA is not as free flowing, right? I mean, they won't just send out recorded calls from prison, right?
This I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe someone in chat knows that, but yeah, I'm not sure about that. But I think you're right.
You can get really at that point is written communications, and there's a huge lag. There's like a huge lag in time, and that was the issue with Chris Watts. Is people were trying to record their conversations with him and put it online, and then they would get in trouble, because those phone calls aren't recorded, and you're not supposed to record them, and then they were saying that they were trading letters back and forth with him, but they were fake letters.
Oh.
There were all these hoaxes going on. So it was really gross. He's on death row now, and they're being very strict with him. Yeah. I would hope so.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
Right.
He's going to take every advantage he can. And then all these other people are somehow, I don't know how or what, I don't know how, but they're getting something out of it too. All these other fucking wives that are grifting through him. It's really gross. It's so fucking gross.
It is.
So anyway, but we have some reading to do, and we're on part 4, and I was flipping through. We can try to finish today. I'm not sure if we're going to get to finish everything today, but we're getting we're toward the end. We should try to see if we can. But we've all, just for anybody who hasn't been here the past few weeks, where we're at now is after the girls are rescued. The girls in our reading last week, the girls went through their incredibly courageous, amazing rescue. And we watched the footage of the interviews that happened after that, and the 911 call that came, immediately after she came out. Amanda Berry kicked her way out of the door. And so now it's the aftermath, and there's a lot in the aftermath, but we'll try to get through as much of it as we can, and then we can talk about what we want to do next in our book club meetings. So oh, hello, welcome Alexandria, thanks for being here. And everyone, please remember to hit the thumbs up even if you're listening on the replay. Thank you very much. I think you started reading last week, so I will start reading this week if that's okay with you.
That sounds great.
And we shall begin. Part 4. Okay, your turn. No, I'm kidding.
I know, that's funny, right?
All right. I'm so sorry. All right. May 6, 2013, arrest. Dan Brill and Mike Hageman were taking a domestic violence report on West 47th Street when their radio started buzzing. The two veteran police officers looked at each other. The radio traffic was urgent. Something unusual was happening. Hageman stepped outside of the house to listen as Brill finished taking the woman's statement. "It sounds like they found Amanda Berry," Hageman said when Brill returned to the car. "You've got to be kidding me," Brill said. Nearly every cop on the west side of Cleveland knew Amanda Berry's name and face. For 10 years, her photo had been up on the wall of the 2nd District headquarters, on telephone poles, and on highway billboards. Everyone wanted to believe she was still alive, but cops know these long-term missing person cases typically end when someone discovers bones. But now the excited chatter on the police radio was saying that Amanda Berry was alive and safe on Seymour Avenue, just a few minutes away. Be advised, suspect Ariel Castro, 52-year-old Hispanic male, is driving a blue Mazda Miata convertible. I'm sorry, that picture. This man, this kidnapper, this man, he's escaping. And do you know what a Mazda Miata looks like?
I do.
They're these tiny little, very feminine looking cars. I'm sorry. They're just it's a little bit jokey to me, Ariel Castro, he's in his getaway car.
He probably thinks it's like really cool.
Yeah, he thinks he's all cool in his Mazda Miata.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Sorry, you all. The dispatcher announced. Brill and Hageman knew that half the police cars in Cleveland were already on Seymour Avenue, so they decided to look for the Miata. They started driving east on Clark Avenue, a busy main road not far from Castro's house, and there it was, just up ahead. A blue Miata was pulling up to a stop sign with two Hispanic males in their 50s in the two-seater convertible. Oh, he had somebody with him. As the police moved closer, the driver of the Miata saw the cruiser and made eye contact with the officers. Brill and Hageman were waiting for the look, the expression they see on the faces of car thieves, drunk drivers, or any other driver who doesn't want to attract police attention. A guilty look, then a careful effort to direct their attention anywhere but at the officers.
The Miata driver did none of that. He seemed totally calm. He headed down Clark Avenue and then turned right into a McDonald's parking lot. Brill radioed in the license plate, FHY 4669. The confirmation came quickly. It was Castro's 1993 Miata. That's the male we're looking for, the dispatcher said. The officers pulled up directly behind the car and turned on their overhead flashing lights. The two men in the car turned around, clearly bewildered. Hageman and Brill approached them, asked for IDs, and told them to keep their hands in plain sight. Ariel Castro was the driver, and his brother, Onel, was in the passenger seat with a dog on his lap. The cops ordered them out of the car. Ariel said nothing, but Onel seemed confused. What's going on, he asked. What did Pedro do? Onel told the officers that if their brother Pedro, who had a severe drinking problem, had gotten into some kind of trouble, they could find him at his house where he lived with their mother. He demanded to be released. We will explain this all to you, Brill said, but right now we need you to cooperate with us. Onel was still holding the dog, and the officers saw that there was another dog in a plastic milk crate in the space behind the seats. Onel was still complaining loudly about being stopped when the officers told him to put both dogs in the crate. As they handcuffed both men, Ariel Castro was silent. Officer Tom Knoll pulled up in a second patrol car and quietly updated Brill and Hageman. He held 3 girls kidnapped for 10 years. One of the other ones is Gina DeJesus.
Brill was shocked. Not only was Amanda alive, but so was Gina, whose disappearance was just as well known in Cleveland. So they had been together all these years. The officers put O'Neill in their patrol car and Ariel in Knoll's vehicle. They were each read their Miranda rights, and when Ariel Castro was told he was being held on suspicion of kidnapping, he seemed stunned. He started to speak, but then stopped and slouched down in the patrol car. The brothers were taken to the 2nd District Police Headquarters, a 5-minute drive from Castro's home, and locked up separately. Ariel Castro was placed in cell 22, a tiny room with a concrete floor and yellow brick walls. Previous occupants of the cell had scratched their colorful street names into the bars over the years. Baldy D, Bobby 104, Lil Brian. Castro sat there silently. In another cell across the room, O'Neill was mouthing off to the officers, demanding to be freed and insisting he had done nothing wrong. Police had found their brother Pedro passed out drunk in his backyard and arrested him as well. He now lay on the floor. He now lay on the floor of a 3rd cell, sleeping it off. All 3 men were given dark blue paper suits, which are generally used for prisoners who are suicide risk. The police had taken that precaution because the case was so extraordinary and was already drawing overwhelming media attention. O'Neill was furious about being forced to change clothes, but Ariel quickly slipped into the outfit while officers changed the unconscious Pedro. Ew, that's a weird picture. The Cleveland police and FBI did not want to take any procedural missteps in such a high-profile case, so they decided to wait until the next morning to question the suspects. For the next few hours, until well after midnight, when Castro was transferred downtown to the Justice Center lockup, police, FBI agents, and other officials came to a cell door to catch a glimpse of the man accused of such breathtaking crimes. Throughout it all, Castro sat silently on a wooden chair beneath the cell's neon light.
He never asked a single question about why he was being held. May 6, 2013, reunion. At the moment Amanda was kicking out the door of 2207 Seymour Avenue, Nancy Ruiz was preparing dinner for her sister Janice 3 blocks down the street. Janice lived there with 2 other sisters, a nephew, and his family. She had suffered a stroke a week earlier and had been released from the hospital that afternoon. The house had been in the family for about 50 years, and its fresh white paint and tidy yard made it stand out on an otherwise rundown block. Nancy was cooking a chicken stew while Janice rested in her bedroom. Her doctors had said that Janice needed quiet, so Nancy had drawn the curtains and shut off her phone and the TV to make sure nothing disturbed her. Outside, though, Nancy heard a commotion, sirens and people shouting. She didn't think much of it, but then the door swung open and her older sister Sandra burst in and shouted, "They found 3 girls in a basement down the street." Nancy froze. "Oh my God," she said. "Is it Gina?" "I don't know," Sandra said, "but we have to go." They took off down the street and parked near the corner of West 25th Street, right behind Ceci Castro's Carib Grocery. Ceci and his wife, Norma, were standing outside the market watching the chaotic scene. Police cars with flashing lights, TV, satellite trucks, a gathering crowd. As she passed, Nancy quickly hugged Norma, whom she had known since she was a teenager, and began running toward the police cars.
She ducked under the yellow crime scene tape and saw Andy Burke, an FBI agent who had been working on Gina's case from the beginning. "Please," she said to him, "just tell me, is it Gina?" "Yes, it is," Burke said. "Oh my God," Nancy shouted. "Oh my God. They said there's a baby. Is it hers?" "No," he told her. "It's not hers." She fell into his arms and they started crying. "They're in that ambulance right there," Burke said, pointing toward the emergency vehicle pulling away down the street. "You have to go to Metro Hospital," Burke told her. "That's where she's going." Cleveland Police Deputy Chief Edward J. Tomba, who had just arrived, put Nancy and Sandra into his cruiser and tore off, sirens blazing, toward the hospital. That's awesome. And the reunion. Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
It gives me chills.
Yeah.
Gina, we've only been in the ambulance for a few minutes when we pull up to Metro Hospital. They wheel Michelle in on the gurney, but Amanda and I walk, and she's carrying Jocelyn. I was sick so many times inside that house and wanted to go to the doctor, but now here I am at this huge hospital, and all I want to do is stay outside and breathe the fresh air for hours. Doctors lead us into a big room with 3 beds that says Trauma 16 and Trauma 17 over its doors. The whole wall is glass, so we can sit on the beds and see the nurses' station and all the doctors and cops rushing around. They put Amanda and Jocelyn on the bed at one end, Michelle in the middle, and me on the third, and pull curtains around each of us. A doctor examines me and tells me I weigh 100 pounds, 30 pounds less than when I was kidnapped. Then I hear a voice I haven't heard in 9 years. "Gina!" It's my mom. A cop is helping her make her way to me because she almost fainted when she saw me. "Hi, Mommy," I say very quietly. Neither of us knows what else to say, so we just hold each other. My mom keeps looking at me and touching me, checking me out to make sure I'm really okay. She's smiling and crying at the same time. A few minutes later, my dad runs in and hugs me, and then my sister Myra. There must be 100 police and FBI guys in the hallway, some of them looking through the glass and others who come in to say hello. Some of them are crying, and a couple of them even fall to their knees, sobbing. My mom and I can't stop hugging. Mommy, I ask when we finally pull apart, do you still make mashed potatoes, fried chicken, and corn? We can make it tonight, she says.
So beautiful.
Mm.
I want to go to the mall, I tell her. We'll go tomorrow, she says. Then I remember that I have something for her. Wait, Mommy, wait, I tell her. I got to show you something. I get the book bag I took from when we left Seymour Avenue and pull out a missing flyer of me, the one that he got from her and that I decorated with glittery hearts and pictures of food. Look what I have, I say, handing it to her. Oh my God, she says. She recognizes this flyer and she's starting to put it all together. I think if our Ariel Castro were standing here right now, she would kill him. Amanda. Where is Beth? I wish she would get here. I'm dying to see her. Gina's family has been here for a while, and a nice man named Yvonne, a nice woman named Yvonne Pointer is talking to Michelle. The nurse says Pointer's daughter was murdered in 1984, and now she's an activist who helps victims of violence. She's sitting on the bed with Michelle, holding her hand, and they're singing, "Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring." The doctors keep poking and pulling at me, checking my heartbeat and blood pressure. I weigh 92 pounds, and I was 120 when he took me. They take swabs from my mouth and Jocelyn's to check our DNA. The nurses bring us a sandwich, chips, and juice. They ask Jocelyn what her favorite food is, and she says KFC. So somebody runs out and gets her some. She's excited, but takes one bite and realizes it's the spicy kind, too hot for her. So she gulps down water. And then I see Beth.
Excuse me. Sorry. She's walking through the nurse's station, but hasn't noticed me yet. She looks so skinny, even thinner than I am. But it's really Beth and my Aunt Teresa and my cousin Melissa. Beth looks through the glass window and finally catches sight of me. She starts pushing her way through the chaos until she finally reaches me and we hug. We're both crying hard, and Teresa and Melissa put their arms around me too. Jocelyn is sitting on the bed staring at all of this. I don't think she has any idea what's going on. Who is this? Teresa asks. That's my daughter, Jocelyn, I say. Well, she says, tell her to come over here. So Jocelyn joins in the hug and I introduce everyone. She knows exactly who they are because I have been talking about them for her entire life. Is Daddy okay? I asked Beth. I heard on the news he was really sick. Yeah, Beth replies, he's okay. And what about you? You're so skinny. Are you okay? Don't worry, she says, I'm fine. An FBI agent named Tim Kolinick comes in and introduces himself. We've been looking for you for 10 years, he says. I know. I saw you guys on TV. Thanks for not forgetting us. He looks at Jocelyn and asks her name. She's gorgeous, he says, smiling at her. In a few minutes, the police ask me to come to a separate room and answer questions. I tell Jocelyn to wait with Betsy Martinez, a nurse, who has been taking good care of us. I can tell Joss is getting more comfortable because she's running all over the place with her face all red from a cherry popsicle somebody gave her. I've got a joke, Miss Betsy, she says to the nurse. What's your joke? Why did the chicken cross the road?
I don't know. Why? To get to the other side. I got you. And she laughs and laughs. Kids, man. I love kids, man. I love kids so much. Okay. Amanda. They asked me if I want a shower. God, I would love a shower, a long one, without worrying about someone pawing me. Just a hot, peaceful shower. I can't remember the last one I had. It used to be my favorite thing. Today, Monday, was my bath day anyway. He had a schedule in the house. It depended on the season and the weather, but usually Jocelyn and I got to take a shower every 4 or 5 days. Tonight, it was going to be our turn to go downstairs to use the shower. They lead us to a big bathroom. It's so clean. I close the door and lock it, and Joss and I stand under the hot water, soaking and shampooing and scrubbing. It's been 10 years since I've been able to use all the soap and shampoo I want. I close my eyes and breathe in the sweet smells. I'm so happy it almost makes me cry. As we're scrubbing, the diamond stud in my ear falls out and slips down the drain. He used to wear it and then gave it to me. This seems like a fitting moment to have that little trace of him disappear forever. We dry off with fluffy towels and put on some clothes that a nurse gave us. She says it was stuff that her family had outgrown. When I escaped from the house, I was wearing a tank top and a pair of baby blue pants that Gina had sewn for me out of fabric from an old dress. Now Jocelyn is wearing a Disney princess dress and I'm in a tracksuit. I can't wait to buy brand new clothes that nobody else has ever worn. We walk back to the big room in the emergency ward, and I see Teddy, Mariah, Marissa, and Devin standing there along the wall. The last time I saw Teddy was at Burger King the day I was kidnapped. I was so mad at him that day, but I'm so happy to see him now.
And I can't believe how big the girls are. My mouth drops and I run over to hug them. This is Devin, they tell me, and I take a long look at this adorable little boy. I first saw him on the TV news as a newborn in Beth's arms, and now he's 7. I've been gone for his entire life. It's nice to meet you, Devin, I say, and we hug. At around midnight, they put my whole family into an FBI van and drive us to an Embassy Suites hotel in the suburbs. We have a 2-room suite with FBI agents stationed outside to make sure nobody bothers us. They tell us there are reporters from all over the world at the hospital and on Seymour. Jocelyn and Devin are bouncing off the beds and playing in the big closets like they've been friends forever, and Beth and I sit up talking. She tells me about Mom and what it was like right up to the end. We make plans to go visit her grave. Beth says she didn't have enough money to get her a gravestone. I'm going to figure out how to fix that. We never do get to sleep, and at about 8, we wander down to the breakfast buffet. In the house, Gina and I would often daydream about a buffet where you could eat whatever you wanted and all you wanted. I eat pancakes and donuts and orange juice, and I asked the man at the omelet station to make me one with ham and cheese and onions. I can't believe how much I'm eating. I haven't seen this much food in 10 years, so many choices. Then back in the room, in a bed with big pillows and soft sheets that smell like soap, I fall into a slumber so deep and happy that I could sleep forever. And for the first time since I was 16, I'm actually looking forward to waking up.
May 7, 2013, Nos vemos. On the morning of Tuesday, May 7th, Cleveland police officer Larry Cheeky Guerra brought a suspect into the Justice Center in downtown Cleveland. As he was turning the man over for fingerprinting and booking, he heard a familiar voice call out in Spanish from behind him. Hey, Chiqui, ¿qué haces? ¿Cómo estás? ¿Qué haces? ¿Cómo estás? I'm trying to get it right, sorry. Guerra turned and saw Ariel Castro in a holding cell, lying on a mat on the floor, his hands clasped behind his head, smiling. Guerra took a step back in surprise. He had known Castro all his life. Their families were from Yaco, and they had grown up together in a Puerto Rican neighborhood a few streets away from Seymour. Castro was 7 years older, but he and Guerra hung out in the same places, including the Caribe grocery. Castro's uncle, Ceci, and Guerra's father were friends, and they'd often take young Cheeky to Indians baseball games. When Guerra graduated from the police academy, Ceci Castro bought him a military-style flashlight worth more than $100. Guerra played the guiro. I need to figure out how to pronounce that. Guiro, a percussion instrument made from a hollowed-out gourd. And he would always join in the parandas, the Christmas music parties in the back of Ceci's shop. He had seen Castro there at one of those celebrations just 5 months before, drinking a beer. Guerra had always thought that Castro was a little odd and obsessively private. Guerra had never met his wife or his children. Castro would never engage in conversation much beyond small talk. He was friendly enough, but you always knew not to ask him too much because he wouldn't answer. Guerra had been at home when he heard the news, and he thought of all the times he talked to Castro while he had the girls locked in his house. He thought of the hundreds of times he'd driven by 2207 Seymour and towed illegally parked cars off that street.
It was his neighborhood, and the man accused of this unbelievable crime was his friend. Now here was Castro smiling at him from the mat on the floor, looking as relaxed as a man in a backyard hammock. Ariel, ¿qué pasó? Says Guerra. I really fucked up, Castro said, sounding tired. Hey, Guerra warned him. I'm not just cheeky in here. I'm a policeman. Whatever you say, you might want to think about it. I don't care, Castro said. I'm a victim here, too. How can you say that? I didn't take those girls, Castro told him. They came with me. I didn't make them do anything. He stood and started pacing around in the cell as he talked. I was abused, too, as a kid. Well, I don't know about that, Garrett replied, his anger rising, but it doesn't give you any excuse for what you did. Dude, it's been 10 years. You even know Gina's father. Everybody knows Felix. How could you do this? Garrett felt the crime personally, as his brother had married a relative of Gina's, and their daughter and Gina had been close friends. I didn't make them do anything, Castro insisted. I didn't R them. They did this willingly. They wanted to be with me. And another thing, when can I see my daughter? I should be able to see her. Guerra was growing increasingly disgusted and asked, how did you keep this secret for 10 years? Did your brothers know anything about this? My brothers didn't know anything about this. Nothing, Castro answered. It was hard, but this was my little secret, and I'm glad it's finally over. I know I'm going to die in prison, but I didn't do all that stuff you guys say I did. Garrett looked at Castro, staring back at him through the bars, and saw that he was cool, unemotional, and resigned.
And Gareth thought to himself, he's been living this lie for so long that he actually believes it. All right, man, Gareth said, I'm done talking to you. Okay, I'll see you later, Castro replied. Nos vemos. Nos vemos, Gareth said. See you later. Though what he was really thinking was, para el carajo. Go to hell. Oh, sorry. It's really hard to hear this guy call himself a victim. That's incredible. May 7, 2013, confession. On the morning after his arrest, police searched Castro's house and found 90 feet of chains. They seized padlocks, deadbolts, and a clock radio and wires rigged up as alarms connected to the front and back doors. In a drawer in the kitchen, they discovered a note handwritten by Castro with the heading Confessions, Sick, and Details. The four-page document, printed on lined notebook paper, was filled with misspellings and scratched out words. The first page was dated with odd precision, 4404, 8:06 a.m., 41 hours after Gina's abduction. The letter apparently took him 4 days to finish because the final page was dated 4804, 2:05 p.m. The rambling note was in turn confession, suicide note, personal history, and rambling fatherly advice to his children. He wrote that he had been abandoned by his parents, that an older boy had sexually abused him when he was a boy in Puerto Rico, and that his mother had been so physically abusive there were times he wished he would die. He wished she would die. He said he was married at age 20 and that the marriage was a failure from the beginning. He claimed that Nilda was abusive and would hit him and push me to the limit.
I hit her back, he wrote. She put me in jail only to get me out and apologize to me. This happened a couple of times, but the name-calling and arguments were always there. After she left him, he said, I lived alone for the most part. I had a good sex drive. I was in a relationship with a woman for about 2 years. He then described kidnapping Michelle and Amanda, claiming, I treat them well and make sure they eat good. I don't understand why I keep looking for women out in the street. I already had 2 in my possession, he wrote. He said that Michelle and Amanda were being held against their will because they made a mistake by getting in a car with a total stranger. Though he expressed no remorse about taking the first 2 women, he did seem more troubled about Gina. I had no idea Gina was so young. She looks a lot older, he wrote, adding that he didn't know that Gina was the daughter of Felix, a school classmate of mine. The bottom line is, I am a sexual predator who needs help, but I don't bother to get it. I live a private life. I function around others like a normal person. I've been having problems with my head for a long time. I feel depressed, dizzy, and short-term memory loss. I really don't know what's wrong with me. To the parents of these women sick, I would like to say, I'm very sorry. I am sick. When I wake up in the morning, I don't feel like I'm really here. For some reason, I feel I can't concentrate. This is a big problem in my everyday life. I just want to put an end to my life and let the devil deal with me. Castro wrote that he planned to let the women go when I feel I have arranged everything so my family knows what to do after I take my life. He noted that he had about $10,000 in a bank account and another $11,000 in cash hidden inside his washing machine.
I would like this money to go to the victims, for they deserve every red cent of it. Again, I apologize. Sorry to everyone this whole ordeal has affected. To my children, please be strong and make the right decisions. Just because you may think you know someone, do not get into their vehicle. This was just the case of Amanda plus Gina. Grimilda, please do your best to ensure my babies are safe. If possible, move away, far away. As I write this letter on 4804 at 2:05 p.m., my symptoms are clearly bothering me. Dizziness and not really feeling like I'm here. Also, depression. I know I am sick mentally. Wow. May 7, 2013, fallout. While investigators searched Castro's house, other officers scoured the neighborhood to make certain they weren't missing any accomplices or clues. Across the street and 3 doors down from Castro's house, police arrested Elias Acevedo Sr., a convicted sex offender who had moved in with his mother but failed to register his new address with police. He was jailed for that offense, and while he was incarcerated, police linked his DNA to an unsolved 1993 R. The further they looked into that case, the more they also began to suspect Acevedo in the unsolved disappearance of Christina Adkins, who was 18 and pregnant when she went missing in January 1995. Encouraged by the fact that Amanda, Gina, and Michelle had been found alive so many years, FBI agent Andy Burke began reviewing cold cases. Burke noticed inconsistencies in police reports about Atkins's disappearance. One witness seemed to have given police a false name and date of birth. After pulling the original files and re-interviewing people involved in the case, Burke discovered that the witness was Acevedo.
Acevedo ultimately confessed to killing Adkins, as well as Pamela Pemberton, a 30-year-old whose body was found in 1994. He then led police to an area off I-90 near downtown Cleveland and pointed to a manhole cover. When officers lifted it, Burke shined his flashlight 20 feet down into an old concrete storm sewer and saw Christina Adkins' skull. Oh dear. May 7th, 2013, interview. 24 hours after his arrest, still in his paper jumpsuit and slippers, his hands cuffed in front of him, Ariel Castro shuffled into a small interrogation room on the 9th floor of the Justice Center, the headquarters of the Cleveland Police and Cuyahoga County Courts. At 5:28 p.m., 2 interrogators, Dave Jacobs, a veteran officer in the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Office, assigned to the FBI's Violent Crimes Task Force, and Andy Harasimchuk, a Cleveland police sex crimes detective, entered the room, showed Castro their badges, and began questioning him. Castro sat with his chin resting in his shackled hands, his elbows on the table, sobbing softly and dabbing his eyes. "Whatever you need to know," he said quietly, "just ask me questions." He spelled out his name. He said he had an ornate tribal tattoo around his left bicep and tried to lift his shirt to show the detectives, but couldn't manage it with his hands cuffed. He said he was 5'7". Jacobs handed Castro a paper with his Miranda rights and asked Castro to read them out loud. "You have the right to remain silent," Castro started, but then his voice broke and he started crying loudly. "I'm worried about my little girl. How's she doing?" he asked. Jacobs assured him that Jocelyn was fine.
"I miss her so much already," Castro said, wiping his eyes. "She knows I was always there for her. I'm sorry. I'm glad she finally got her freedom." Castro finished reading the Miranda form and signed it along with another document granting his consent to speak to police without a lawyer being present. The interrogation began with Castro giving some family history about his late common-law wife, Nilda Figueroa, and their 4 children. He said his job as a bus driver was hard and I would just come home stressed out. His account was delivered as matter-of-factly as if he were answering questions from a bank teller. But he broke down again when he mentioned Jocelyn. My daughter was born there. It just worked out so well. She's a miracle baby. Jacobs asked him to describe the day he abducted Michelle. He said he offered her a ride home from the Family Dollar store at Clark Avenue and West 30th Street. He couldn't remember what year it was. I'm just so screwed up in my mind, he said. Anybody in their right mind wouldn't do something like this. He described chaining Michelle in his basement. Jacobs asked if he had sex with her, and Castro replied, that was the whole intention. Ugh. I'm selfish and cold-blooded, he said. Having 4 kids and now 5, I can't understand how I did these things. I'm a father. I'm a grandfather. When the officers asked about Amanda, Castro started sobbing again. I'm going away for a long time. I know it, he said. I just want to tell you whatever you need and tell the truth. Maybe my information can help other kids or other women. He said he did not know Amanda before he abducted her. He told them that he was dropping off his daughter Arlene on West 110th Street when he saw Amanda walk by in her Burger King uniform. I noticed Amanda smiling towards us, and I was attracted to her.
So I says bye to my daughter, and I pull out of the driveway, and I went the way Amanda was walking. He pulled up next to her, rolled down his window, and asked her if she wanted a ride. She said yes, surprisingly, Castro recalled. She thought my daughter was still in the van. Castro then said he tricked her into coming to his house and described how he began having sex with her on that day. A week or 2 later, I called her mom. I think I said something like, I have your daughter and that she's okay and that she's my wife now, he said, crying again. There was rarely any interaction between Amanda and Michelle, Castro said, because he told them not to talk to each other. He described Jocelyn's birth in the plastic wading pool and how he cut the umbilical cord, froze the placenta, and eventually buried it in the backyard. While Amanda named her Jocelyn Berry, he considered her last name to be Castro. The interrogation then turned to Gina, and Castro recalled that he went to Wilbur Wright Middle School looking for Arlene on April 2nd, 2004, when he noticed Gina on his way in. I was attracted to Gina. She was showing her cleavage, he said. He spoke briefly with a security guard and then went inside the school, but when he couldn't find Arlene, he left. 15 or 20 minutes later, he recalled he was driving down Lorraine Avenue when he saw the 2 7th graders walking together near the corner of 106th Street. Castro said he knew Gina was the daughter of Felix DeJesus, and he would see them together at school assemblies and shows. But he said on the day he abducted Gina, he didn't realize it was her. If I'd known then, I would have just dropped her off. Castro turned his car around and drove past Arlene, who did not see him, and pulled up beside Gina near the corner of 104th Street.
I did something very cold-blooded to my daughter. I passed her to get Gina, he said, breaking into tears again. He told the interrogators he was surprised that police didn't see him on surveillance footage when he went into Wilbur Wright Middle School that day. They could have cracked the case right there. Castro said he had not planned to abduct anyone that day. It was an impulsive decision, and he was surprised when Gina got into the car with him, though he couldn't remember how he convinced her to come into his house. We stayed downstairs for a while, then we went to the basement, he said. Jacobs asked how he persuaded her to follow him there. I just asked her, he said. Jacobs asked what happened there. We were just talking, Castro replied. She was complying with everything, all 3 of them. They were just so compliant. To this day, I don't understand how they would get into my vehicle and got into my house with no questions and without a struggle. He repeatedly used the word consensual to describe his sexual relationship with his captives. He claimed he had never been violent and that none of the victims had ever cried while he was having sex with them. Castro said he would sometimes take the women outside into the backyard, but always made them wear wigs, baseball caps, and sunglasses. Jacobs asked if he was concerned they would try to escape. I gained their trust, he said. They were surprisingly willing to do what I asked. Castro described he would occasionally have guests over to his house. I would tell them, be quiet because I don't want you to get in trouble, he said. He did not want to say things like, I'm going to beat your ass, because by then I had felt them out.
I kind of knew what I could get these girls to do. On the day the women escaped, Castro told the officers he had gone to his mother's house to wash his car. He said he told Jocelyn, I'm going to Grandma's and she's going to cook for us, and I'll bring some back. Amanda's room was unlocked because Jocelyn had been complaining about being locked inside all the time, he said. Yesterday, I know I let my guard down. He never took Amanda, Gina, or Michelle out in his car, he said, but he often went out with Jocelyn. His brother Pedro had seen them in his car a few times, and Castro told him she was his girlfriend's daughter. A few days before Castro was arrested, he said Pedro had walked into a Burger King while he and Jocelyn were eating breakfast, but his brother thought nothing of seeing Castro with the child. I never took her to my mother's house, he said. I wanted to so bad. I wanted her to meet her, but she never met her. Jacobs asked Castro about a cross in the backyard of Seymour Avenue and some freshly turned dirt. Castro said he had buried 2 or 3 pet dogs in the yard, and the newly dug earth was for a greenhouse he had started building. Jacobs asked if anything else might be buried in the yard. If you're trying to get at, am I a serial killer? I'm not, Castro said. I don't think you are, Jacobs said. I'm a sexual predator, he said. They say if you do it once and you continue doing it, you're a predator. What if you only do it once? In your mind, what does that make you? Jacobs asked. Probably just an offender, he said. I kept doing it over and over.
Jacobs asked how Castro managed to keep the whole thing secret for so long. I don't know how I pulled it off, he said. After 2 hours of talking, Castro asked when he could eat. Jacobs and Harash said they would take a break and get Castro some food. As they were leaving the room, Castro stopped them. He said he had about $40,000 in his 401k account from the Cleveland Public Schools, plus cash hidden in a black bag inside a broken Kelvinator washing machine in his basement. He was worried that corrupt cops searching his house would steal it. Another officer brought Castro a slice of pizza and a bottle of Coke. Sitting alone in the room with the surveillance camera still recording him, Castro had trouble picking up the pizza with his cuffed hands and put his face down into the plate and ate it. When he finished, an officer brought him a second slice. A half hour later, the 2 interrogators returned. Castro asked if they found the money in his basement and told them, I would like as much money to go to the victims as possible and my daughter. Jacobs showed Castro a series of photographs of the women taken the previous night at Metro Hospital. He asked him to identify the first one, and Castro started sobbing heavily. My baby's mama, Amanda, he said. Through his tears, Castro told Jacobs with obvious pride that he had helped her quit smoking. He then identified Gina and Michelle, and crying again, he said, I was just so tired of this double life and I wanted freedom for them. Jacobs asked Castro about his sexual history. Before he abducted the 3 women, he recalled, he used to pick up prostitutes on Lorraine Avenue and bring them back to his house.
He said he had lost sexual interest in his 3 captives by the end because I just didn't find them attractive. He had not had sex with Amanda or Gina in 8 months or a year, and only rarely had sex with Michelle, although he admitted to having 2 videos on his phone of him having sex with her the previous week. Jacobs showed Castro the letter dated April 4th, 2004, 2 days after he had abducted Gina, that police had found in his kitchen. In case something ever happened to me, I wanted you guys to see that I'm a victim, Castro said, explaining the letter, referring again to his claim that he was sexually abused as a child. He said he never intended to have a child with any of his captives, but he never used any form of birth control. He claimed all 3 women wanted sex all the time. They would ask me for it. When Amanda became pregnant, he said, well, we just dealt with it. He called her an excellent mom. During the course of the 4-hour interview, Castro never apologized for what he had done and cried every time Jocelyn's name was mentioned. I miss my daughter dearly, but on the same token, she has her freedom now, he said, and they have their freedom.
May 9, 2013, starting over. Amanda. The FBI says we need lawyers, and they're sending over ones they say we can trust. I'm staying at Beth and Teddy's house on West 129th Street, and there are satellite trucks and TV cameras outside. The police are keeping the media away from the front door, and we have our shades drawn. Beth went outside yesterday and pleaded for privacy, but this doesn't feel like privacy. The lawyers, Jim Woolley, a former federal prosecutor and partner at Jones Day, Henry Hillo, a former assistant county prosecutor and partner at McGinty, Hillo, and Spellacy, and Heather Kimmel, associate general counsel of the United Church of Christ, arrive, and we meet in the living room with Jocelyn, my Aunt Teresa, Beth, Teddy, and their kids. The room is filled with stuffed animals, flowers, and cards that people have sent from all over the world. Jim and Harry start making jokes about each other, and they actually make me laugh. I cover my mouth with my hand because my teeth are so yellow and gross after 10 years without seeing a dentist. I can't wait to get them fixed. Is there anything we can get for you or bring to you? Anything at all? Henry asks. I'm not sure what a lawyer can do for me, but there are two things I need. My mother doesn't have a headstone, and I would like to get her one, and I want a birth certificate for my daughter. We can do that, Henry says. May 13, 2013, graveyard, Amanda.
A week after my escape, I'm finally going to see where my mom is buried. I wanted to go yesterday because it was Mother's Day, but the FBI said that all the news people would be expecting me to do that, and I'm not ready to face the cameras. So now Joss, Aunt Teresa, and I are on our way to the cemetery a few miles outside Cleveland. So many wonderful memories of my mom flood back as we drive past the pretty trees and fields along the road. Jen Myers, a victim specialist with the FBI, is driving us in her van. Jen recently worked with families in the school shooting at Newtown, Connecticut, and she's been great to talk to about how to cope with what happened to us. She has been with us practically every day since the moment we got out, and I'm glad she's the one taking us out here. We don't know exactly where Mom is buried, but Aunt Teresa has a section and plot number, and she knows that it's close to my grandma's grave. We walk across the grass trying to find the spot, and when we finally do, what I see makes me break down. Somebody has laid fresh flowers on my mom's grave with a note. Dear Amanda, we hope that your mom knows you are home. It's signed by someone I don't know. For 10 years, I lived in a world controlled by one selfish man. Now I live in a world of kindness where total strangers help me and ask for nothing in return. I explained to Joss that this is where her grandmother is buried. She's in heaven, but this is where her body is, I tell her. So we're going to come here and visit her all the time. Okay, Mommy, she says quietly. It's cool, barely 50 degrees, and rays of sunshine shoot through the big trees around the gravesite. I look around at the perfectly mowed grass and think my mom would approve.
I crouch down and whisper, Mommy, I'm home. Let's just have a little conversation here real quick. I want to keep reading, but I just want to break for just a moment to talk about what we just read. Wow. All that is so heavy because, and I'll just give you my first impressions. Thinking about all the Castro stuff. So I was wondering why he left the door unlocked. He wanted to get caught. He wanted them, he subconsciously, even if he wasn't consciously making the decision that day, he was subconsciously making that decision by leaving the door unlocked to their room. And and when you see people acting so evil like this, like doing such horrible things for such a long time, and then trying to explain to, his captors, well, you deserve this. You got into my car, all of this stuff. You see in his writing that he knows what he's doing is wrong and bad, but he's still going to explain it as he's a victim, to anybody who asks. He's still going to try to excuse it with he's a victim and they asked for it, basically. It was consensual. And it just blows me away how complicated the human mind is, and how savvy we have to be to protect, to these mind games, to protect ourselves from people like this. That's what was blowing me away. What about you?
Right. Yeah. Um, the defense mechanism that he brought to the table about how he was abused, that he was a victim, that and that it was consensual, that
Right.
all of that, it made me, I mean, I got sort of physically
Yeah.
repulsed by the whole thing
Yeah.
because we of course we know that it wasn't, but the fact that that's how he portrayed it, and I mean, he was really quite a disgusting looking man as well. So,
Mhm.
so to think that these young girls, would actually claim to want to do all of that with him, I don't know how anyone, could have believed him, first of all, but the fact that he took that position was quite unbelievable.
For me, it goes to the ideas that get passed down along with the abuse, right?
Right.
So he was abused. He was abused. And but not only was he abused, but those ideas that went along with abuse got passed down with him, the excuses for it, the reasons for it, the justifications for it, and the inability to understand correct boundaries, and the inability to, really discern when something is consensual or not, right? Or to at least, be able to make excuses about things being consensual or not. All those ideas are passed down. That's what I'm trying to break, is the chains around our brains of those ideas,
Right.
because that's what keeps us in victim blaming.
Right.
This is for him. He's like, I'm a victim, but I'm going to blame these victims for my victimization of them. Yeah, I know that same thing, Solo. So, we as girls, I don't think I've talked to one woman in my lifetime who hasn't been treated that way in one way, shape, or form. I swear to God, I don't. It's so fucking prevalent. Women are thought of, and men too, but more women, because it's more of a patriarchal thing. It's something that's been going on for, thousands of years, is that women are just there to have babies. Women are just sexualized, and so it's just a really long, hard thing to shake, that's just what we're here for. And so all these excuses are made around, why we deserve what we get sometimes. And I feel like very slowly over the course of time the attitudes change, but sometimes the pendulum goes back and forth, and it swings back into this. And I think the internet helps us swing back into this area where we're just gross to each other, because the internet wants us to be gross to each other, because it's more exciting that way. So it's just really, really sad. It's just really, really sad. But then the reunifications are really chilling. The Amanda going to her mother's grave and seeing a note to her. That's where you see people's kindness and love in the world. That people really are out here. There is both good and bad. I just wish that we could see more of the good on the internet. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the kindness, that can start the healing. And she didn't expect that, right?
Yeah.
She was just there to find her mother's grave, and they were just looking for it. And all of a sudden, she discovered this, and that was such a little bright spot of, you know, sunshine,
Yeah.
uh, that you could see that her heart was open enough, even after everything that she had been through, to accept that kind of kindness from a stranger.
Yeah.
Which, you can see also the other way, where people become hardened and um, unkind themselves because of the abuse that they've gone through, which
Exactly.
is right, which is where, the chains don't break. They keep going and going and going through generations. One family member after another, or however it happens. But that really struck me as being okay. She's going to be okay.
Yeah, and they haven't talked a lot about Jocelyn's recovery yet, but
Right.
I keep thinking about her. She must be at this point, at the rescue point, she must be so damn confused. This
Can you imagine?
no, I could not. I just could not.
I mean, when they took them to the embassy suites, and they went to the breakfast buffet, and
Yeah,
they could eat anything they wanted, as much as they wanted. My heart was just, it was breaking,
yeah.
because or when they took a shower, and they could stay in the shower as long as they wanted to, and use as much shampoo and soap as they wanted to. Yeah, those are the things that make you realize how cruel, unbelievably cruel.
And
Um,
how not to, take for granted the little things in life like that.
that's right.
You
That's
know,
right.
being able to eat what you want, having a nice hot shower at your disposal. Yep.
Right. Right.
Yep. Being able to use all the soap that you want and be clean. I mean,
Right.
just the idea of being clean, you
Being
know,
clean,
being
because
clean,
they didn't
you
have
know?
a proper toilet,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, being able to just be clean has to be such a
When it's a luxury to you,
right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, let's keep reading, and it is now your turn.
Is it? Okay. All right. August 1st, 2013, sentencing. On August 1st, Ariel Castro took a seat in a downtown Cleveland courtroom wearing an orange prison jumpsuit and shackles. He looked like an unremarkable middle-aged man with wire-rimmed glasses, a receding hairline, salt and pepper beard, and a bit of a paunch. Castro had already pleaded guilty to 937 felony counts, with many details of the indictment drawn from Amanda's diaries, and today was his sentencing hearing. Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Timothy J. McGinty, an outspoken former judge, said 937 was a conservative number of the possible counts against Castro. He described Castro as an evil incarnate. In exchange for the guilty plea, McGinty had not sought the death penalty, and the case was wrapped up at a remarkable speed, less than 90 days from arrest to sentencing. Sorry. I have crazy dogs getting the zoomies in the background.
No worries.
Castro had agreed to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 1,000 years. A sentence intended to convey the community's revulsion at his crimes. McGinty also said it was a message to other criminals who might want to become famous by copying Castro. All that was left now was for Judge Michael Russo to formally accept the deal at the sentencing. Woolley, Hillo, and Kimmel wanted a low-key hearing. Given the extraordinary interest in the case, they had no desire to have Amanda, Gina, and Michelle endure a very public confrontation with Castro. The county prosecutor, an elected official who never shied away from the media spotlight, disagreed. McGinty and Castro's crimes should be aired as publicly as in as much detail as possible. He said he wanted to leave no doubt in Judge Russo's mind that he should approve the sentencing deal, and to leave a court record so damning that no judge, even decades in the future, would ever consider letting Castro out of prison. He wanted all the victims to testify.
Russo agreed to let the sentencing hearing go forward, and McGinty presented a series of witnesses, including psychiatrist Frank M. Ochberg of Michigan State University. Describing Castro's treatment of Amanda, Gina, and Michelle, Ochberg said, "The damage done to them will not go away," but he called them marvelous, compelling examples of resilience. Amanda and Gina did not want to see Castro and were not ready to speak publicly, so they declined to attend. They sent family members to read statements. The impact of these crimes on our family is something that we do not want to discuss with people we don't know, Beth told the judge. Even if I wanted to talk about it, it is impossible to put into words. For me, I lost my sister for all those years and thought it was forever. And we lost my mother forever. And she died not knowing. It is impossible to put into words how much it hurts. Amanda is not here today. She is strong, beautiful, inside and out, and is doing better every day. She's not just my only sister, but the best friend I have and the best person I know. She does not want to talk about these things. She has not talked about these things, even with me. The main reason she does not want anyone to talk about these things or be forced to talk about these things is because she has a daughter. She would like to be the person who decides what to tell her daughter, when to tell her daughter, and how to tell her daughter certain things. Sylvia Colon, Gina's cousin, spoke on behalf of the DeJesus family. To Ariel Castro's family, we are saddened that you are burdened with this horror and will unfortunately forever be tied to these atrocities. Please know that we do not hold you accountable and pray that you can one day be whole again. Continue to love and support one another. We promise that with this recipe, you will be triumphant.
Our family recognizes it is not for us to judge or determine any punishment. Only a higher power can do that. Today is the last day we want to think or talk about this. These events will not own a place in our thoughts or our hearts. We will continue to live and love. We stand before you and promise you that our beloved family member thrives. She laughs, swims, dances, and more importantly, she loves and is loved. We are comforted in knowing that she will continue to flourish. She will finish school, go to college, fall in love, and if she chooses, will get married and have children. This is where we will continue to put our energy. She lives not as a victim, but as a survivor. Her insurmountable will to prevail is the only story worth discussing. Then she turned to the defense table and faced Castro directly. To Ariel Castro, que Dios the abade ni su alma. Sorry if I butchered that.
No,
May
yeah.
God, may God, may God,
de su alma.
su
Yeah.
alma. Yes. May God have mercy on your soul. Michelle stood before the judge and described the pain of being separated from her son. He had been placed in foster care before she went missing, and she had been working to regain custody when she was abducted. Then she addressed Castro. I spent 11 years in hell. Now your hell is just beginning. I will overcome all that happened, but you're going to face hell for eternity. Judge Russo asked if Castro had anything to say before sentencing. For the next 16 minutes, Castro stood at the defense table, rambling in a soft voice, without notes, appearing to voice thoughts as they came to him, in no particular order. He had pleaded guilty to almost 1,000 counts of horrendous crimes, but he sounded for all the world like a man whose feelings had been hurt by all the mean things being said about him.
Not shocking. He described being abused and said that he was addicted to sex. He said that pornography had pushed him into this art of masturbation, which he would engage in for 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 hours a day nonstop. He claimed he had never been abusive until he met Nilda, whom he beat because I couldn't get her to quiet down. Castro insisted that Jocelyn had a normal life and would probably describe him as the best dad in the world. There was harmony in that home, he said. Most of the sex that went on in the house, probably all of it, was consensual, he told the court, insisting that his imprisonment of the 3 women did not involve violence. I simply kept them there without them being able to leave. I just want to clear the record that I'm not a monster. I did not prey on these women, he stated. I just acted on the sexual instincts because of my sexual addiction. I am a normal person. I am just sick. I have an addiction. Just like an alcoholic has an addiction. Finally, he offered an apology. I am truly sorry to the DeJesus family, Michelle and Amanda. You guys all know the harmony that went on in that home. I ask God to forgive me. I ask my family, and I apologize to my family for also for putting them through all of this. I want to apologize to the state of Ohio, the city of Cleveland, for putting a dark cloud over the city. I just want to apologize to everyone who was touched by these events. I just hope that they find it in their hearts to forgive me and to maybe do some research on people who have addictions so they can see how their addictions takes over their lives. He then criticized the FBI, saying, I feel that the FBI let these girls down. Yes, it's their fault because they questioned his daughter, Arlene, about Gina's disappearance, but they failed to question me. If they would have questioned me, it's possible that it would have ended right there. Okay.
Oh, brother. He apologized to the judge for taking up his time and then complained about Gina's cousin telling him in court, "May God have mercy on your soul," which he said was uncalled for. After alternating between describing the harmony in the house and saying how sorry he was, he concluded, "So again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, victims. Please find it in your hearts to forgive me. Thank you." On the bench, Russo could barely conceal his disgust. He accepted the sentencing agreement and asked Castro to rise as he issued the court's final word on his case. "Sir, there is no place in this city, there is no place in this country, indeed, there is no place in this world for those who enslave others, those who sexually assault others, and those who brutalize others. For more than 10 years, you have preyed upon 3 young women. You subjected them to harsh and violent conduct. You felt you were dominating them, but you were incorrect. You did not take away their dignity. Although they suffered terribly, Miss Knight, Miss DeJesus, and Miss Berry did not give up hope. They have persevered. In fact, they prevailed. These remarkable women again have their freedom, which is the most precious aspect of being an American. Mr. Castro, you forfeited that right. You now become a number with the Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. You will be confined for the remainder of your days. You are hereby remanded for transport to Lorraine Correctional Institution. Now, for Miss Knight, Miss DeJesus, and Miss Berry, as well as your young daughter, we celebrate your futures. We acknowledge the faithfulness of your families, your friends, and all others in this community who so fervently believed that you were alive. On behalf of the judges and the staff of this court, we wish you continued success and a sense of peace." Castro stood, and bailiffs led him out a side door of the courtroom.
It was the last time he would ever be seen in public. August 1st. That's your turn, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's okay. You just got one sentence. You can go if you want. August 1st, gravestone.
Nope, go for it.
Okay. Amanda, I'm watching the sentencing on TV at home with Jen Myers from the FBI. I'm glad I didn't go down to the courtroom. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing me again. Beth said what I wanted to say, and if I had been up there in front of the cameras and so many people, it would have been hard not to cry. It makes me angry to listen to his ridiculous, delusional statements. I want to slap him. None of that is true, I say to Jen. How can you say that? That's just in his mind, she replies. It doesn't matter what he says. You know what really happened. While we're watching the sentencing hearing, Jen gets a text from Jim Woolley. He says the people from Kotecki Family Memorials who donated my mom's grave marker called to say it was laid at her grave today. It's a bronze stone with roses etched around the border and a color photo of my mom smiling. My mom has amazing timing. First, I felt her pushing me toward the door the day I needed to find the strength to escape Seymour Avenue. Now, on the day he is finally being punished, her memorial stone, which means so much to me, arrives. She is the reason I'm still alive, and her spirit will get me through whatever lies ahead. Gina, I wake up on my parents' bed and hear his voice on the TV. I have a sex problem. I was a victim. Blah, blah, blah. They were the same things he said in the house so many times. I'm glad I decided not to go to court. It's pointless to talk to him or listen to him.
You know what? Even if he was a victim, he had the power to choose. That's damn straight, girl. He didn't have to do what he did to us. If he was mistreated as a kid, it should have made him more aware of how important it is to treat other people well. Just because he abused me, I'm not going to go abuse somebody else. He keeps talking, that voice. I heard it every day for 9 years. I've had a few months without it, but now all his crazy talk is back. He says one thing and then the opposite. He did nothing wrong and treated us well, but he is sorry for what he did and wants to apologize. He's telling so many lies, it's hard not to get angry. He keeps talking about the harmony on Seymour Avenue. Does he think people are stupid? He tied us up and forced all of us to say how much we wanted sex with him. He really is crazy if he actually believes we did. I want to scream at him. Nobody cares what you have to say. You're not going to convince anybody that you're not a monster. Maybe you weren't a monster every day, but you were most definitely a monster. You put me in prison. Now it's your turn.
August 5th, 2013. Return to Seymour. Angie Castro Gregg walked back into her father's house at 2207 Seymour Avenue 2 days before it was scheduled to be demolished. Cleveland officials wanted the house razed as quickly as possible and to shred and throw in the dump all its contents to prevent it from becoming a ghoulish attraction. The last thing they wanted was House of Horrors tourism. Castro had agreed on July 29th to forfeit the home, but not before breaking down in tears and complaining to the police that it was a perfectly good house and should not be destroyed. Evidence had been removed, every inch of the house had been photographed, and FBI prepared a wooden scale model that cost more to build than the value of the actual house. The electric company cut the power, and a contractor had donated his services to tear the place down. Before the demolition equipment arrived, Castro's family was given a chance to salvage any personal items. So now, with FBI agents watching, Angie climbed the stairs to the second floor, a part of her former home that she had not seen in 15 years. She had left this house when she was 14, after her parents split up. Although she had been back several times, her father had never let her upstairs. What she found there now made her shudder. Windows boarded over, holes drilled in the walls, missing doorknobs, wires in strange places, locks on the outside of the doors. She felt sick. It was hard to imagine what sort of mind had devised it all, and it was worse to accept that it had been her own father's. She walked into what had been her parents' bedroom and saw a child's drawings on the walls and clothes for a little girl, and realized Amanda and Jocelyn must have lived there. She was horrified at the thought of Amanda giving birth to a baby and raising her inside these four walls.
She walked into the little bedroom that had been hers. Pictures she had taped to the wall were still there, as were her elementary school plaques and awards. It was eerie to see her childhood memories in a place that had witnessed so much misery. Angie collected as many family photos and other personal mementos as she could find, including her red dog puppet she found in the attic. Just a few months earlier, she had spent several hours in the living room of this house, helping her father set up his Facebook account, while Amanda, Gina, Michelle, and Jocelyn were locked away upstairs. She wished there had been a clue, a noise, a creak, a cry, anything that would have made her suspect that something was wrong. If she had discovered the girls, or if her father had confided in her, she could have forced him to go to the police and let the girls go. Over the years, she had remained close to her father and talked to him often, but now she couldn't bring herself to face him. She hadn't gone to visit him in jail. She knew how persuasive he was and that he would try to convince her that what had happened wasn't as bad as it sounded, so she cut him off completely. Her mother had died the year before, and now she realized her father wasn't who she thought he was. She felt like an orphan.
August 7th, 2013, demolition. Amanda. They are tearing down 2207 Seymour, and it's big news on TV. There has been so much interest in that house that police built a security fence around it and have been guarding it around the clock. People have driven from all over to see it, causing constant traffic jams. As a huge piece of heavy equipment with a giant mechanical claw rips off the front of the house, on TV, I can suddenly see right into the room where he kept me for so long. It's such a strange feeling. For so many years, I dreamed of smashing those walls, ripping the wood off those windows, anything to get out of there. Now I'm watching this big machine do it for me, taking just a few minutes to destroy what had been my whole world. Jen Myers called and asked if I wanted to be there or even just drive by in her car while it was happening. It was nice of her to ask, but Seymour Avenue is the last place in the world I want to be. Gina stayed home too, but I see Michelle is there letting some balloons go. Tim McGinty, the county prosecutor, is being interviewed on TV and is explaining they want a new and positive use for the land, maybe a park. He says that they were going to use the $22,000 in cash they found in Castro's washing machine to pay for the demolition, but the company did it for free as a public service. He offered the cash to me, Gina, and Michelle, but we didn't want Castro's money or anything of his. I'm grateful that I will never see that house again. Gina, I'm watching the news at our friend Janet Garcia's house. I didn't want to go to the demolition and face all the cameras and reporters.
My mom said she could take me down there and hide me in a car, but then I'd feel like I was in captivity again. No, thank you. My mom is there watching, and my Aunt Peggy is actually climbing into the big crane. She takes the controls and smashes the claw straight into the second floor of the house, right into the bedroom where he held me. When the house starts crumbling, I can hear people cheering. I don't make a sound, but nobody is cheering louder than me. Wow.
August 2013, downward spiral. At 6:25 p.m. on August 2nd, the day after his sentencing, Ariel Castro arrived at the Lorraine Correctional Institution, about 20 miles southwest of Cleveland, a standard first stop for prisoners from northern Ohio entering the state prison system. At the county jail in Cleveland, where he had been held since his arrest, he had told officials that he was suicidal. But during the medical and psychological screenings given to all new inmates at LCI, he said he had lied about wanting to kill himself because he had been scared of being placed in the general population and wanted to be in a cell alone. He said he had been depressed since his arrest, but that he had plenty of reasons to live, including his religious beliefs, his family, and his children. He appears quite narcissistic, but does not show evidence of mood, anxiety, or thought disorder, the medical officials who interviewed him concluded. Still, they recommended that Castro be placed on suicide watch and segregated to keep him safe from himself and other inmates. Their report stated that his feelings about suicide could change as the gravity of his situation begins to sink in. 3 days later, on August 5th, Castro was transferred to the Correctional Reception Center in Orient, southwest of Columbus. That prison normally serves as the intake center for inmates from the southern half of the state, but officials made an exception to get Cleveland's most notorious criminal as far away from the city as possible. Given Castro's infamy, Warden Rhonda Richard ordered a more extensive mental health examination by prison doctors. Castro told them he was upset because other inmates had been shouting at him and harassing him. During the examination, Castro smiled occasionally and described himself as always a happy person.
The doctors found him oblivious to the realities of his future situation and incredulous that the media and other inmates should treat him so poorly. Castro told them that he wanted to do my time in peace, that they concluded that he was a low risk for suicide, but they said that could change because prison life might challenge his sense of entitlement and fragile grandiosity. Fragile grandiosity. Diagnosing him as having narcissistic personality disorder with antisocial features, they urged prison officials to monitor him closely for any changes in his mental health, given his lengthy sentence, somewhat fragile self-esteem, and the notoriety of his crimes. Accordingly, the warden ordered that Castro be kept in the prison segregation area in a cell by himself, out of sight of other inmates. He would be allowed to leave his cell 1 hour each day for recreation, medical appointments, or meetings with prison staff. The supervisor would be present when his meals were delivered. Whenever he left his cell, Castro was to be handcuffed. Guards were required to go to his cell and check on him every 30 minutes. Those measures were intended to prevent Castro from harming himself or from being harmed by anyone else. Castro's new home was the last cell on the second floor hallway or range. It had 2 windows with a screen and 2 thick horizontal bars, a bunk bed, sink, toilet, and a little corner desk, a Bible, pen, and paper. From his sparse cell, he could see no one, and no one could see him. Castro started complaining almost immediately. Guards said he was demanding and pompous. He often sat naked in his cell, and he was constantly told to put on clothes when female guards were on duty. He refused to leave his cell for recreation.
He began writing journal-style notes, and in the first entry, dated August 10th, he grumbled about a guard who mistreats me for no apparent reason. He hated his food, claiming that he found hair and plastic in his meals, and that they were always served in a pool of water. He wrote that he flushed most of his meals down the toilet. He was dropping weight quickly, and inmates saw guards holding up his pants as they led him to appointments. I really think someone tampered with my food, he wrote on August 14th, the day medical staff came to his cell twice in response to his complaints of chest pains, vomiting, and nausea. Guards who brought Castro his food showed him that his tray was randomly selected from a cart full of identical trays, but Castro continued to insist that it was being doctored. His many concerns began to obsess him, and he documented them in his journal. August 22nd, he asked for a mop to clean his filthy cell and toilet. He asked for clean bed linens and underwear, but nothing gets done. August 28th, I'm really getting frustrated. August 31st, I will not take this kind of treatment much longer. I feel as though I'm being pushed over the edge, one day at a time. Castro also wrote an essay called A Day in the Life of a Prisoner. I eat, brush, and go back to bed. Get up, lay down, get up, lay down. This goes on all day. I pace in my cell, meditate, stare at the walls as I daydream a lot. I will never see light at the end of the tunnel, but that's all right. It's what I chose. I've lots of time on my hands now to think and read, write, exercise. I want to make a bigger effort to try to commit to God. I also get depressed and don't want to do anything but just lay here. Most of the guards here are okay, but the younger ones don't take the job seriously, or they are rude to me for no apparent reason. Sometimes I drift into a negative thought. I check myself and try harder not to go there.
He had 2 visits at his prison from relatives, including one from his mother. He was free to make phone calls, but never did. September 3, last day. On the morning of September 3rd, Brandy Ackley, a supervisor in Castro's unit, collected his underwear to be washed. She had often seen Castro naked in his cell, and that day she noticed that Castro's prison pants were loose and falling down. She left instructions for officers coming on duty later in the day to return Castro's underwear when it came back from the laundry. Castro's underwear, weird. At 1:30 in the afternoon, Castro was handcuffed and escorted by guards to a meeting with prison officials to discuss his request to be placed in protective control, an even higher level of segregation and security. Castro was asking for that change due to the high-profile nature of my charges and seemed happy that this could involve a transfer to a prison closer to his family in Cleveland. He also asked about mail and family visits. The prison officials recommended that the warden grant Castro's request. He was returned to his cell at 1:52 p.m., and guards checked his cell periodically throughout the afternoon. At 5:29, a guard and supervisor left a dinner tray at Castro's cell. As they were walking away, Castro called them back and said there was a problem with his food. The supervisor again told him that his tray had been chosen randomly, but Castro refused to eat. Guards checked his cell at 6:08 and at 6:30. A guard, supervisor, and nurse came to speak to him. He refused his evening hypertension medication, which prison doctors had prescribed after his arrest.
For the next 2 hours and 12 minutes, no one came to look in on Castro, even though regulations required checks be conducted every 30 minutes. Alone in his cell, he placed a pocket-sized Bible on his bunk and opened it to the Gospel of John, chapters 2 and 3, which contain one of the Bible's most well-known verses. For God so loved the world that he gave his only one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. He laid out several pieces of paper on the small corner desk. On one, he wrote out the names of his children, including Jocelyn, and his 6 grandchildren. He decorated it with hearts, flowers, musical notes across the words Daddy and Mommy, and the exclamation, God is great. He carefully wrote the date, September 3rd, 2013, on another piece of paper and printed several Bible verses in large capital letters, ending with, For all are sinners, we all fall short of the glory of God. He stacked up 10 pages of complaint forms, mostly concerning food and harassment by prison guards, which he had never submitted, adding a few pages of handwritten notes titled, I Found God, and A Day in the Life of a Prisoner Who Has Accepted God. In the neat pile, he also placed a letter to his mother. Hi, Mrs. Warden, he began another note asking for permission to call his mother. She and I haven't spoken in nearly 3 weeks. I would like to speak to her, for I'm concerned of her well-being and she of mine. He set a pair of glasses on the bed, straightened his shower shoes on the floor near the wall, and draped his towel neatly across the sink. At 8:51, guard Ryan Murphy checked on Castro. He was standing near his cell door, staring directly at Murphy. They met eyes. Neither man spoke.
Castro wrote out one final complaint form. His underwear still hadn't come back from the laundry. At 9:18 p.m., 27 minutes after the previous check, guard Caleb Ackley looks into Castro's cell and sees him hanging. Ackley yells to Murphy, who sounds an alarm and runs to join him. Castro has tied a bedsheet around his neck and knotted the other end around the frame of the window screen. His orange prison issue pants have fallen to his ankles. The officers lift Castro to relieve the pressure from his neck and tear the sheet away from the window. They lie him on the floor while Murphy runs to get something to cut the sheet away from his neck. Several other guards arrive and start CPR, thinking he might still be alive. At 9:22, prison medical officers arrive and take over the CPR. Castro is unresponsive. Then 9:25, prison officials call for an ambulance. 9:49, the ambulance hasn't arrived, so they call again. 10:05, 40 minutes after the first call, ambulance medics arrive at the cell. 10:18, Castro is loaded into the ambulance and leaves the prison. Following prison protocol, he is handcuffed. 10:46, Castro arrives at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center. 10:52, 33 days after he was sentenced to life in prison plus 1,000 years, Ariel Castro is pronounced dead. At 3:45 the following morning, Franklin County Coroner Jan M. Gorniak began her autopsy at the county morgue. In the cool clinical language of postmortem exams, Gorniak described an utterly unremarkable corpse. The body is that of a well-developed, well-nourished white male, compatible with the reported age of 53 years.
He was 5'7" and weighed 168 pounds, down from his weight of 178 when he arrived at the prison a month earlier. There were handcuff marks on his wrists. His right earlobe had a single pierced hole, and his nose, abdomen, lips, and internal organs were all normal. He had damage to his throat and bite marks on his tongue, which were consistent with Gorniak's official ruling about the cause of death, suicide by hanging. Her only unusual finding was an inch-high cross in blue ballpoint pen ink that Castro had drawn on the left side of his chest, directly over his heart, which looked like a small plea to God from a man who knew his judgment day had arrived.
I'm just stopping one quick moment to say that and we're now about to find out about the girls finding out that he's already killed himself. What horrible injustice. Anyway, Halloween 2013, Finding Peace. Amanda, it looks like 1 million kids are trick-or-treating on our new street, even though it's a drizzly evening. Joss is dressed up as Blueberry Muffin, one of the Strawberry Shortcake characters, with a blue wig and striped tights. She and her cousins step outside and fall into the happy parade. I'm still getting used to this. I walk along the street behind her and I can't quite shake the feeling that I'm doing something wrong, that I'm breaking some rule, that I'll be punished for walking out the door. For too many Halloweens, I wished I could take Jocelyn outside, but all we could do was trick or treat at Gina and Michelle's bedroom door. He kept the house lights off so no children would come knocking at 2207 Seymour Avenue. I'm trying to forget all that and move on, but it's hard. Memories come from nowhere, unsettle me, and have a way of keeping me on edge, close to tears. But day by day, it gets better. I love my new home, and I love that I'm living under the same roof as Beth, Teddy, and their 3 kids. They live upstairs, and Joss and I are on the first floor. Beth found this house online. It was in terrible shape, but in a nice neighborhood, and Freddie Mac, the federal mortgage agency, had taken it over during the recession. So when so many houses were going into foreclosure. Jim Woolley mentioned the house to Mary and Rustum, Corey, developers and philanthropists in Cleveland, and they persuaded Freddie Mac to quietly donate it to us. The Coreys helped pay for a complete renovation, and an army of volunteers overseen by George Shake Jr., owner of Cleveland Tile and Cabinet, and one of his workers, Paul Irwin, worked for 3 months at no cost to us. Many other kind people with busy lives, including lawyers at Jones Day, helped to replace the roof, install new HVAC, and make the place sparkle, from the new hardwood floors to the bright pink paint in Jocelyn's bedroom.
I placed 3 big words on the wall over the fireplace: live, laugh, love. They remind me of the promise I made to myself inside Seymour that when I got out, I would remember that every moment is a gift. So many people in Cleveland and well beyond donated to the Cleveland Courage Fund, set up by the city council members, Matt Zone, Brian Cummins, and Donna Brady. The fund raised nearly $1.4 million from more than 10,000 individual contributions, some of them as small as $1. The donations came from all 50 states and 7 countries, and it was split evenly among me, Gina, and Jocelyn. I put Joss's money in a trust fund for her. The Courage Fund money has bought me the time to concentrate on getting Jocelyn settled into our new life and to learn all the ways the world has changed since I was 16. Whatever happened to payphones? Now cell phones give you driving directions. There are so many things to get used to, like grocery stores. I load up my cart with food I used to dream about: strawberries, plums, kiwis, big boxes of Raisin Bran, and green beans. And of course, ribs. I have to remind myself that I can just get a few things at a time and come back to the store whenever I want to. And he can't stop me anymore. I make us the most amazing breakfasts of over easy eggs, nice and yolky with bacon and sausage, just because I can. Sometimes when I'm cooking, I go out of my way to push the pan to one side of the burner. He always demanded that it be exactly in the middle of the flame and called me names if I did it wrong. It feels liberating to do many things my way, not his. I want to finish high school, but Jocelyn comes first. Classes at the neighborhood elementary school started only a couple of weeks after he was sentenced. I didn't think she was ready for what other kids might say, so I'm homeschooling her for 1 more year. We turned a small bedroom into a classroom that has lots of things we wished for on Seymour Avenue, like light pouring through the windows.
We have a laptop and a printer and a brand new desk. The walls are covered with harder vocabulary words. Congruent, same shape and size. Homographs, words that are spelled the same but have different meanings. I didn't know that. Homographs? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Thank you. We study math, contractions, alliteration, proper nouns, the solar system. I taped the alphabet to the wall, along with words that start with each letter. And at the start of every class, we stand, as we did inside Seymour Avenue, put our hands over our hearts and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Gina and I have become closer friends than we ever were inside. It's like we've started over. Joss loves it when Gina comes to visit, and she uses my phone to text her silly messages. It's tougher between me and Michelle. We are very different people, and I think life is going to take us in different directions. We endured the unthinkable together, and we'll always have that bond. I wish her happiness. Joss has made new friends. Some of the little girls in the neighborhood come over to play, and I'm starting to let her go to their houses, but it's hard to let her out of my sight. When they play in the front yard, I sit on my new sofa and watch them out the window. I'm happy that she's stepping out into the world, but I'm also worried. Will she run into traffic? Will she be too trusting of others? Will kids be mean to her? I don't sleep much. I lie with Joss until she falls asleep. Then I get up and pace, walking from room to room, trying to settle my racing mind. Seymour Avenue is like a scary movie playing over and over in my head. Because he killed himself, Joss and I will never have a chance to confront him, so I'll never really be able to feel closure.
A few weeks ago, Teddy, Beth, and I went to a yard sale, and as we were loading the car, Teddy teased me and called me a dumbass. He was just joking, but I felt like I'd been hit by a train. I choked up and started crying. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Are you okay?" I snapped at him. "Don't ever call me that again." He used to call me that, and I hate it. Poor Teddy was just joking, but hearing that word triggered something completely overwhelming inside me. I don't go out all that often. When I do, people recognize me. Everyone means so well, but it's awkward when strangers walk up and hug me. I'm not sure what to say or how to act. I'm seeing a counselor, and she says it will take time to heal. One minute I feel whole and strong, and the next minute I feel like I am breaking. I think about what it all means, who I am after 10 years in that house. I know I'm more aware of other people's pain. I am a believer in the power of hope, in myself and in God, but I still don't know why this happened to me or what lies ahead for me and Joss. After all those years locked up in a house, dreaming of getting out and being with other people, sometimes all I want to do is be by myself at home. So at night I pace, trying to figure it all out, looking for peace. December 11th, 2013, moving on. Gina. My tutor and I met at Cleveland Public Library with big windows where I can see the snow falling outside. Diane Cook, a retired teacher, tutors me several hours a day and helps me with other skills too, like budgeting money and studying for my written driving test.
Today, we're working on reading. I never finished seventh grade, so I have a long way to go to get my high school diploma. I'm 23, and sometimes I think it would be easier to just quit and get a job. But every time I say that, my mom nearly jumps out of her skin. She wants me to finish school, period. I know she's right. So here I am, making my way through the first part last by Angela Johnson, a novel about teen pregnancy. I turn to page 75 and start reading out loud and keep going until I reach the last line of the chapter. Nothing has changed, but everything has. What does that mean? My teacher asks. What's changed? He's growing up, maybe, I say. This is how I'm rebuilding my life, one page at a time, one day at a time. I don't cry much. Amanda is still a fountain of tears, but everyone is different. I try to push my locked up years out of my head, erasing him from my mind and filling it with new and happier memories. At least that is what I want to do and seems to be working. I'm starting a new life. The Gina I was, the Gina before Seymour is gone. That innocent, introverted, and happy go lucky person doesn't exist anymore, and it's hard to let her go. But it's what's happened. So instead of dwelling on that, I'm focusing on figuring out the rest of my life. Everyone changes anyway. Sad and violent things happen to me, and because of that, I think I can help other victims, like a young girl I met recently. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me about the bad situation she grew up in. She needed someone to listen to her, and when she was finished, I told her, I'm glad that is over. Take it slow, day by day. Enjoy that it is not happening now. Enjoy the right now. She was grateful and said that if it worked for me, it just might work for her. I appreciate everything now. New eyeglasses, a quiet bath, squeezing all the toothpaste I want into a new toothbrush, my mom's pork chops.
I have my own bedroom. Because of kind people who gave to the Courage Fund, my family was able to pay for an addition to our small house that my dad had been planning for years, and someone donated a privacy fence outside too. I'll have my license soon and just bought a little Toyota so I can drive to the mall or over to Amanda and Jocelyn's. I couldn't believe all the funny license plate frames they sell. And for fun, I picked out one that says, Yield to the Princess. It's hysterical when my dad drives my car. While I was practicing driving, I drove my car into a really deep pothole the other day and messed up the front end. I am mad at myself for doing that, but I'm not letting it bother me. I've had worse problems. I spend lots of time with my mom. We go to bingo and dance salsa in the house, but mostly we just hang out together. It's been hard for her to get used to the idea that I'm not 14 anymore, not a kid to correct, to tell, to sit up straight, or not to stay out late. I understand why she still thinks of me that way and that she wants to protect me, but I am so much older now. I'm jumpy sometimes and wonder when that will stop. It happens over little things, sometimes just the sound of the front door opening. For years, whenever I heard a door open, it almost always was bad news. My niece came close to me holding scissors the other day, and I asked her not to come near me with them again. She didn't know about how he would use them to chop off my hair. Sleep can be hard, and sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night kicking and crying and screaming, "Get off me!" My little dog, Lala, sleeps in my room. For the few months I had her on Seymour before he gave her away to his relatives, she slept beside me, between my legs, or even right on my pillow. Lala was in the car with him and his brother when he was arrested, and she ended up in an animal shelter. One day on the TV news, I saw her there. I told my lawyer, Heather Kimmel, that I would love to have her, and she went and rescued her for me.
I have very few things from the Seymour years. I threw away all my clothes. I have Lala and some notes and poems I wrote to my family. I hope to see you soon so we can sit outside and watch the moon. I love walking outside and looking up at the sky. It may be my favorite thing. It always cheers me up to gaze up and see the sun or the moon. I wish everyone would realize how much they would miss it if they couldn't go outside for years. My nieces talk about Twitter, what they're Googling, and how to use GPS on their cell phone. When I first got out of Seymour Avenue, I had no idea what they were talking about, but I'm catching up with all that changed in the world between 2004 and 2013. A lot of my school friends have jobs and babies. I feel closer to God. There were times inside when I lost my faith or nearly did because I couldn't understand why God would let this happen to me. After I got out, I went to Our Lady of Mount Carmel, Our Lady of Mount Carmel Catholic Church, and I knelt there and prayed and asked God to forgive me for doubting him. I also said a prayer to Nilda Figueroa. When he first kidnapped me, he told me this was all her fault, that if she hadn't left him, he wouldn't have kidnapped me, Amanda, and Michelle. For a while, I was actually angry at her. I guess I was mad at anything and anyone who I thought could have saved me all that pain. I had no idea then all that she endured. And so I asked her to forgive me for ever blaming her and told her I was sorry for what she went through. I also lit a candle for all missing children. My parents took me to the night out against crime 3 months ago, after 3 months after I was freed. They had gone every year to hand out missing flyers with my picture. I wasn't ready to yet to speak publicly, but my dad got up and said what I wanted to, that we were there for every missing child that's out there. I hope I'll be able to do more to help those kids soon. I am finding my voice.
May 5th, 2014, Washington. Gina. Wow, the White House. Our names are on the guest list, and two uniformed Secret Service officers greet us. One of them says, "It's amazing to meet us," but she's got that backwards. We're the ones who are amazed. We were invited to Washington by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, an organization that helped our families when we were gone. They are giving us their Hope Award, which goes every year to someone who inspires hope for missing children. The big awards dinner is at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel tomorrow night on the 1-year anniversary of our escape. The center flew us all here. I came with my parents and our neighborhood, Charlene Millam, and our neighbor, Charlene Millam, who has done so much for my family over the years. Amanda brought Beth and two cousins, Tina and Tashina. Our lawyers, Jim Woolley and Heather Kimmel, flew with us too, but they insisted on paying their own way since they have vowed never to take a cent for working with us. They are like family now. I had never been on a plane before, and neither had Amanda. Everybody told us not to worry about it. It couldn't be easier, like sitting in your living room. Yeah, right. Our flight from Cleveland was so bumpy that people's drinks were flying out of their hands and hitting the ceiling. Even passengers who flew a lot said it was scary, their worst flight ever. Before I was kidnapped, I would have thought, what bad luck that my first flight was so horrible. Now, after learning to focus on the positive, I think, what good luck that we landed safely. We walk into the White House and see the East Room and the State Dining Room and the blue and green and red rooms. On Seymour Avenue, we used to call our rooms by their colors. I never imagined when I was living in that miserable pink room that one day I would be standing in this famous red room.
I've never seen such wide hallways and grand staircases. When we come to a shiny banister, I whisper to Amanda that I bet the Obama girls slide down it when nobody's around. I want a picture of me pretending to slide on it, I tell her. So I climb up on it and she gets her camera ready. Gina, be careful, Jim says. You might fall. And of course I do. I bet I'm the first Puerto Rican to fall in the White House, I say, laughing. Just then we run into Bo, President Obama's dog, in the hallway. He's adorable. And the guy walking him lets us pet him for a few minutes. I'm thinking that this has to be the single coolest day of my life. Then, as we were getting ready to leave, someone tells us that Vice President Biden would like to meet us and wants to know if we can come back tomorrow, May 6th. Amanda. It's 10 a.m. and we're back at the White House, though we've come in at a different entrance than we did yesterday. Today we're going to the West Wing. The hallways are narrow and there are people all over the place. Everybody looks like they're in a hurry. We stop for a minute outside the Oval Office and peek in, but it's empty. I feel like I'm on a movie set. We're escorted to a little seating area to wait for the vice president, and I ask to use the ladies' room. When I come out, I walk around corner and whoa, I come face to face with President Obama, who's talking to Gina and Beth. It's really him. He is holding out his hand and he knows my name. Hello, Amanda, he says. Or should I say, hello, Amanda? No, I'm kidding. Hey, Amanda, he says, I heard you were coming to meet the vice president, and I wanted to make sure I had a chance to say hello.
I want to tell you how proud I am of you and that it's such an honor to meet you. Then he asked, do you have time to take a picture? It's a funny question since he's the busy one, but I know he is just being nice. We pose for a few photos with the president and vice president, and then he is off saying, I've got to go deal with this Ukraine thing. He's making a joke, but it reminds us.
God.
I know, right?
Oh my God. Wow. Okay,
I know.
sorry.
I know. That's why I tripped over that. Oh, geez. He's making a joke, but it reminds us of exactly where we are. The vice president asks us to sit down and then sits forward in his chair, looking at Gina and then me, focusing in hard, like we're the only people in the world. I can't begin to imagine what you went through, he says. Nobody can begin to imagine what that was like. He tells us about a terrible accident in 1972 that killed his wife and daughter. His eyes are filling with tears, and we're all starting to cry too. I didn't have the courage to deal with it, he says. I just kind of quit. I didn't have the strength to confront it. He leans in close and looks me right in the eyes, like you do. Then he turns to Gina, and you do. I think to myself that it's amazing how he got over his pain and accomplished so much. If he can do it, so can I. He was 29 when that accident happened, and I'm 28. I have a new life ahead, and he's right. After what I've been through, I can face anything. He's not afraid to cry, and I don't have to be either. We talk for about 45 minutes, and the vice president says he has to go, but he wants to treat us to lunch. So one of his aides escorts us to the White House mess, which is not a mess at all. It's a fancy dining room in the basement. It's busy at lunchtime, and there are a couple of senators eating at the next table. I'm taking pictures of everything, including the presidential seal pressed into the butter. Who thinks of something like that? Oh, Lynn, are you there?
Oh, I didn't mute. Sorry about that. Sorry. The room is so pretty, and we laugh and joke and sip bubbly water from crystal glasses, eating club sandwiches with white linen napkins. Gina, the ballroom at the Ritz is absolutely huge. I've been there. More than 500 people are sitting at round tables for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children dinner, all dressed in suits and fancy dresses. We're at a table near the front listening to speakers, including two teenagers who helped rescue a little girl abducted by some creep in a van in Pennsylvania. I wish they had been around when we were taken. We go on stage last, and John Walsh, the host of America's Most Wanted, whose son was kidnapped and murdered, introduces us. I'm so nervous. Amanda has a little speech written, and she's been practicing it. I have a few ideas about what I want to say, but I haven't written anything down yet. I don't know if I'll be able to speak when I get up on stage. I've never spoken in public. I feel a little sick with nerves. John Walsh finally says our names, and we step forward to the microphone with our families right behind us. I feel my heart banging in my chest. Amanda goes first. It is really special to be here with Gina and our families. It means more than you'll ever know. She starts tearing up and stops for a moment, then keeps going. I want to thank the center for everything they've done and continue to do, not just for us, but for all the missing kids and their families. If I could only say one thing, it would be this: never give up hope, because miracles do happen. Now it's my turn. I'm thinking I probably should just say thank you, but at the microphone, more words come out. Always believe in hope, even though sometimes it is hard to believe in hope.
Just pray to God, and God will give you that hope. I did it. Everyone is standing, cheering, and applauding for us. It's amazing. Amanda and I look at each other, and she smiles at me. I feel so alive.
All right. Now we just have the epilogue. Let's see. We can do 11 minutes, right? 11 minutes?
Yeah, let's do it.
We can do 11 more minutes of reading. Okay. Epilogue, learning from Cleveland. The Cleveland case prompted the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to convene its first ever summit on long-term missing children. On April 2014, nearly 200 investigators, pediatricians, anthropologists, medical examiners, behavioral scientists, and others involved in missing children cases gathered outside Washington to consider the question, are we doing enough? The officials noted that an increasing number of long-term missing children were being found alive, including in recent years J.C. Dugard and Elizabeth Smart. But they also observed that none of these cases had been solved directly because of traditional police investigations into their disappearances. Amanda, Gina, and Michelle escaped on their own. Dugard was found when police became suspicious of her abductor for a completely unrelated matter. Smart was found when a viewer of America's Most Wanted recognized her abductor from a suspect composite made by Smart's sister. About 400,000 children a year are reported missing in the United States. Most of them turn out to be runaways, and others are taken by family members in custody disputes. Those situations can result in violence to children. A stranger abduction, the stereotypical classical kidnapping, is more rare, but there are still about 100 cases a year. That means that every 3 or 4 days, a child is kidnapped somewhere in America. In cases where children have been abducted by strangers, the longer they are missing, the greater the likelihood that they are not alive. However, the center is stressing to law enforcement that contrary to conventional wisdom, many long-term missing children may still be alive.
One young woman still missing is Ashley Summers, who was 14 when she disappeared in July 2007, less than a mile from where Amanda and Gina were taken. For years, Amanda's and Gina's photos were shown alongside Ashley's on missing posters on the big screen at the Cleveland Cavaliers game and on the Oprah Winfrey Show. On the day Amanda and Gina escaped, Ashley's mother, Jennifer, heard that a third woman had escaped with them, and she prayed it was her daughter. She frantically called Jen Myers at the FBI, who broke the bad news. One morning in September 2014, Amanda walked into the bagel shop where Jennifer Summers works. They didn't know each other, but Jennifer recognized Amanda immediately from having seen her on TV. She was struck by how Amanda, free after all those years, looked so radiant and happy, and she wondered, when will we find Ashley?
2015, Amanda. Jocelyn now attends a regular school and has her own little desk, just like all the other kids. She loves school, and when she comes home, she tells me the names of all her new friends and what they did at recess and circle time. I still worry about what other kids will say to her. Before she walked into a big classroom, after all those years of being homeschooled, I asked my child psychologist to help me come up with the best way to explain to her more about her father. I didn't want a stranger to be the first one to tell her the things she didn't know, or worse, to tell her their version of what happened before she could hear it from me. I did tell Joss that her father had died, but not much else, and she never asked. I think that deep down, she knew there were things she didn't really want to hear. She sees people stop me in the grocery store and ask, "Are you Amanda Berry?" And she saw my picture on the cover of People magazine, and all she says is, "Mom, you're famous," but never asks why. Before her first day of the second grade, I told her that her daddy had a mental illness that caused him to do bad things. I told her that some people are sick in the stomach and that daddy was sick in his mind. And that was why he took me away from my family. For many years, nobody knew if I was alive or not. And that is why people are now so happy to see me. And I also told her that he loved her very much. Her response was to hug me and tell me that everything would be okay. Thanks to Joss, I also have new friends. I love her teacher, and we hang out sometimes. Joss loves her too and tells me, "You are my favorite teacher," and she is my second favorite teacher. That makes me smile. Joss has a best friend at school, and her mom and I also have also become friends. We all went to a Cavaliers game and saw LeBron James. It's exciting. It's exciting to see him back in Cleveland.
This city has so many great people, and they deserve some good news. When there is a knock at my door on this quiet street, it's usually Joe Woolley, the son of my lawyer, Jim Woolley. Joe is a medical student who is about my age, and he gets me. He is funny and makes me laugh. We never talk about the past, but about what's happening today and what we are planning for tomorrow. He's always fixing something in the house or putting up the Christmas tree or assembling a trampoline for Jocelyn. Once he came with his girlfriend and they played with Jocelyn for hours. When I see flyers of missing children that come with the ads in the newspaper, I memorize what the boy or girl looks like and focus on some feature that would not change with age. I think we all need to do more for missing children. Many people drive by a billboard with a missing kid's photo or walk by a flyer on a store door and don't really even pay attention to them. When the police first came to my house, my mom was sure I had been kidnapped, but they didn't take her seriously. That's just wrong. Even if a lot of teens do run away, when a mother says her kid is in trouble, the police should listen and not tell her they know better. As the years dragged on, most people thought I was dead. So why should there be an ongoing, all-out investigation, especially when bank robberies and other crimes occur every day? Why spend the time? I am why. Gina and Michelle are why. I spend a lot of time being grateful, especially to all the kind people, many I don't even know, who have helped me. I am grateful that every day I see Beth, Teddy, and their kids. Beth hasn't been well, and I am grateful to be able to help take care of her now. The Courage Fund gave me enough money to buy her a new car that is big enough for all 7 of us. Her old car broke down all the time, and it's great to be able to solve that problem for her. I take her to doctor's appointments and I help out with her kids when she isn't strong enough. I can never, ever pay her back for all she did while I was gone, but I am going to spend the rest of my life trying.
I had to make sure I wasn't muted again. Sorry. I think a lot about the rest of my life, and I still don't know what it's going to look like. Now that Jocelyn is in school, I need to get working on my high school diploma. I want to get a job, hopefully doing something that will help other people. Maybe I can get some training so that I can become some kind of counselor. I've noticed something interesting about myself over the past year. I'm becoming less afraid of life. Before I was taken, I didn't even go to school dances. I stayed in my safe zone and was afraid to try new things. Now I push myself. I was terrified about getting on an airplane, but I did and had a wonderful trip to Washington. I pushed myself to get my driver's license, and now I love the freedom of picking up the car keys and, without telling anybody, walking out the door and driving anywhere I want. One of these days, maybe Joss and I will get in the car and go to New York. I've always wanted to see it after all those years watching the Macy's Thanksgiving parade, first with my mom and then when I was locked inside Seymour Avenue. New York has always been this magical place that just existed on TV. Now it's not a dream anymore, it's a destination. I can get there. Gina. I recently got my first job and I love it. I work in a restaurant. I walked into the place not long after I got out of Seymour Avenue and just got a good feeling there. So months later, I went back. I filled out an application, and right after my interview, they made me a hostess seating people. I answer the phones too. Every time I walk in the door of the restaurant, I'm excited. My boss is great, and it's nice to meet new people. If any customers have recognized me, they haven't said anything.
I was also able to move out of my old neighborhood and buy a house in the Cleveland suburbs. I'm glad I was able to do that for my family. We have a yard now for Lala and our other dog, Oreo, and my mom has a room to plant a garden. She has always wanted to grow her own tomatoes and cucumbers. The new house has two entrances, and I live on the side that's like an in law suite. Everyone else, my parents, my brother, my sister, and her two kids, are on the main side of the house. We eat together and I hang out over there all the time, but I also can escape when my nieces get too loud and crazy. For the first time in my life, I have my own bedroom and bathroom. In my old house, we had one bathroom for 7 people, so someone was always yelling at someone else to hurry up. Now we have 3.5 bathrooms. I feel lucky. I've reconnected with Chrissy too. She's busy with a boyfriend and a job, and she lives on the opposite side of Cleveland now, but we send funny texts to each other. People ask me what I think of men, and I say my dad and my brother are great, and I would like to meet a wonderful guy someday and have kids. But for now, most of my time is spent studying for my high school diploma and working. Every day, I try to keep thinking about now and next and not about the past. I am trying new things and going new places that make me feel like I have a fresh start on life. Some days it's easy, others not. I used to blame everybody for what happened to me. I blamed Arlene and Arlene's mother for not figuring out who kidnapped us. I blamed the people who came into that house and didn't figure out that we were there. I thought the neighbors on Seymour were so dumb for not realizing what was going on. I was upset that the police and FBI couldn't find me. It even got to the point where I was mad at my own family because they were living their lives while I was stuck. But I don't think like that at all anymore. I know that nobody is to blame for this except Ariel Castro.
Not me, not my family, not anybody else, just one very bad man. But enough of him. I'm focused on the future. I'm going to travel. I want to see Europe and visit Spain and Italy. I would like to go to Puerto Rico and to the pyramids in Egypt. I want to go skydiving, maybe even bungee jumping. I would never have even thought about doing something like that before I was kidnapped. But now I want to try things that make me feel happy, like I'm living every minute to the fullest. And then I come back to my cozy new house where I can find peace and pray to God to watch over my family and keep us all safe. Wow.
Yeah, wow.
I'm not going to lie to you. The word is verklempt, I guess. These girls, man. I, these girls and what they went through and that ending. And I didn't know that the community had so heavily pulled through for them. All that money that the Courage Fund.
Yeah, amazing. I didn't know that either.
Did you say $1 million? Over $1 million?
1.4 or something like that.
That
Yeah,
that is fucking incredible.
right? I
And
mean,
there was no big social media crap going on around it. I mean, I just keep thinking about this there's two things I keep thinking about this through the lens of, you know, now with social media, it just gets so ugly and mucky.
Right.
And, and because there are such amazing, good people out there who want to help victims like this without all the accolades, you know? And then there are all the grifters online. But the other thing I keep looking at this through is, the section where they were talking about missing children and how many every year. And this book was written in 2015, something like that. I I just can't not think about Sebastian Rogers. I just can't. I
Right.
can't. I can't not think about him. He's like a symbol of other missing kids too, who, every time I see something going on online about him, I keep thinking he could be watching this. And that's why I struggle myself with some of the content I even make,
Mm-hmm.
why I think about what I make every time I do, because he could be watching all this. And
Right.
and it's really hard to think about it that way. And 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 when we read this book, we know that there is a possibility of these children who are missing being alive and watching it all playing out online, and then having to cope with the aftermath of that, you know?
Right. The I can't even, I mean, the hopelessness of knowing that life is going on around them and they can't be found. Yet
Yeah.
there are, there is activity, there's social media going on, there's news, there's, things that are keeping them in front of people, their story in front of people. So I guess, yeah. And for them to watch it and not be able to do anything, the hopelessness of that would seem really, really horrible. But at the same time, I think, what you do um, with, especially with the content that you create, Lynn, is to keep these kids in front of people who we need to be reminded, because I think one of the things I got from this book, aside from the fact that the power of hope and resilience is just amazing, especially with these girls. How in the world did they maintain that through all those years of captivity? It's
Yeah.
beyond me to understand how they could do that. But also, I mean, even though the story ended happily and there was the Courage Fund and all of that, I still wonder, what could have been done differently by the police and the community members during the time that they were missing,
Right.
that could help find them sooner. I wonder if there was more, and I don't know, but I'm just wondering, right? And how does this story maybe expose, gaps in how missing persons cases are handled, right? Because it's like I think who was saying it at the end there, but the flyers on the grocery store windows of you can walk by and not even notice it, or a billboard, and but you see it and you don't know it, you don't remember it or anything. And I mean, all of that's true.
Well, and the one thing that really stuck out to me was the police, was the section where they pointed out, and I had never, and it's so correct, and I had never put it together in my own head before, is that in so many of these missing children cases, it wasn't good old fashioned police work that solved the case. It was them freeing themselves or
That's
being
right.
right. It wasn't police work. So something needs to change in the way the police are doing their investigations in missing kids cases. Something needs to change when there's so many reported and so many, unsolved and things like that. KCG, to answer your question about Harvey Dilley, I have not looked into the case, but you're not the first person who's mentioned it to me. Harley Dilley. I just said Harvey. I meant Harley. Um, but I definitely want to look into it because a few people have mentioned it to me. I've heard it's horrible. But it is kind of shocking to notice how differently Michelle was treated by Ariel and by the community too. You know what I mean?
Right.
That she didn't have like the built-in family that was there for her. Um, that I'm now more interested in looking at her story too, just to see the differences. But in terms of talking about what to do next, one thing piqued my interest. I was thinking kind of about not reading another book, or just for a minute. Not that I really do love reading books, but it is kind of a long endeavor. You really need to commit to, you know what I mean? It's
right.
And what if the book isn't good or whatever? But anyway, but there's a book coming out about Idaho 4 about Brian Kober.
Oh,
Written by two really, really good authors. I mean, amazing authors.
when is it coming out?
It's going to be soon. I think it's coming out in June.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's got a few months. I think I need to look it up again. I should have got it into my memory before I talked about it here, but I'm super interested in reading that book. I'm very
kidding.
Because it's by two very, very prominent, legitimate investigative reporters. One of them from Vanity Fair, and the other one, gosh, I'm trying to. All right, now I have to look it up because it's bothering me. One moment, please, while I look this up. Brian Kober, Vicky Ward should come up. James Patterson is the other author.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I knew it was somebody. Yeah, James Patterson.
Oh, we have to do that one.
Yeah. And it's coming out. It is coming out. Let's see. What does it say here? Available. It's not available yet. Coming soon, but when? It's Hatchet. Let's see. Here, I'm going to show this. Deadline has written about it. James Patterson and Vicky Ward team on book about Idaho student murders. Skydance TV to option rights for television. When? But does it say when? When? Oh, that's 20. So this was announced in 2023 that they were coming out together.
What's the title of the book?
The title is The Idaho 4, An American Tragedy.
All right.
Okay, let's see.
Oh,
I'm trying to figure out when it's coming out though. I've got the AI answer right here. See the AI answer? Let's see. Here it is on Amazon. Here it is on Amazon. Is it available?
July 14th.
July 14th. Okay.
Yeah.
July.
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 That's not soon enough.
Oh man, and the trial is
It's coming up, right?
I think the trial is in August.
Is it August? Okay.
Yeah, if I remember correctly. But I'm also if you want a wonderful video watch on your own time to feel good. Is it a interview where they met together? Okay, I'm actually going to look that up now. Amanda Berry, Charles Ramsey. I'm going to look that up right now. I think this might be it. Does this look familiar to you? Am I playing the right one?
How is it?
Hello.
My baby. How are you? It's cold. Come on, get in here.
It's so
Get in here,
cold.
get in
Oh,
here,
thank
get
you,
in here,
thank you,
get in here.
thank you. It was the moment my sister and I thought about for almost 6 years.
Hey,
I say thank you very much.
Well, come
I'm your
here.
sister.
Hi, son. How are you?
I'm good. How
How
are
you doing?
you? I'm blessed. Thank you.
I was finally face to face with the man I remember seeing through that broken door. My personal hero.
So when they say, dude, you a hero, man, good looking now, I say, man, you need to shut up
Really?
and realize who the hero is. The
But you're
hero is
lying.
that girl that got taken from her family and still fought, didn't give up. She reversed the game. So this is how it's gonna be. Fine, I can deal with this because I know God gonna come get me sooner or later. So I'll play the game.
Okay, I like him even more now.
I know, right?
I
He
like
is.
him even more now.
You just want to, you just want to give him a big hug.
Yeah, because he's recognizing, no, you're the hero, girl.
I know.
I mean,
I
even
know.
though he played his role, she's the hero. She and the other girls are the heroes. That is let me just keep playing. Hold on a sec.
It was smart. That was smart as hell what you did. And I don't care how many years it took. You knew how to play it. That's what makes you the hero.
I was so nervous. And I don't know why, but I think it's just coming
Please.
back from everything. And I
Mhm.
haven't faced it yet, you know?
Mhm.
But it's surreal to sit here and see you. That's when we got right into it. May 6th, 2013. The moment he heard me pounding on that door.
Bam, bam, bam. Now that got my attention. I said, it's a white girl over there, man. Y'all not gonna help her? I got a Big Mac in my hand, so I was on
Big
my way to
Mac.
get you. But remember, I got a Big Mac in my hand, so give me time.
So
He got a Big Mac in his hand.
He has a bit of a performer in him, doesn't he?
Oh my
He is hilarious.
god! He had a Big Mac in his hand. He's like, save the girl or Big Mac.
I got
Oh
a
my
Big Mac in my hand.
when that happened, I just remember I think like maybe it was the adrenaline and everything that was just going on. Like I kind of remember everything, but like
You don't
everything was
have to.
happening so fast. So like from your point of view, what was going on? Like I remember the door was locked. I couldn't get out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was probably so simple. The bottom was like
no, babe,
because
no,
I felt like maybe if I was like like
babe,
maybe it was me, right?
no, babe.
So I didn't know it was going
No.
on. Okay.
I'm telling you, babe.
It wasn't.
Listen to me.
Okay.
You weren't getting out that door.
Okay.
That man, he was well. That's the reason why I had to do what I had to do at the bottom. If it was that simple, you wouldn't have needed nobody's help, babe. To pull that off and to keep it going that long, you're not an idiot.
Mm-mm.
Period.
And how does that happen with like the neighbors on the street? Like I know like his uncle lived in that house
Let me tell you
beforehand.
something. I say that house right there next door to me. I say it's boarded up. And it's 100 degrees outside. And there's no air conditioning unit or central air in the back. How do you survive in that house? Well, that's why. That's he playing the band and he probably be practicing in there, and he don't like to disturb nobody, so he got the windows boarded up to muffle.
All human beings do this. They always want to find a good reason for something. You know what I mean? They're always going to talk themselves out of the worst, unless they hate that person. If they hate that person, then they'll make it into the worst thing possible. But if they don't know the person, they'll be like, oh, it's okay. He's touching that little girl. There's nothing wrong with that, or it's okay. His house is boarded up. He's just in a band, that's what we do. It's like a natural human instinct. You know what I mean?
Right. The rationale, right?
Yeah.
It's like, let's make, sense of this thing.
And we need to make sense of it to fuel our own survival, to feel okay about it,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Anyway, well, we've been on here a while now, a couple a couple hours and a half. So thank you for powering through this book with me.
Oh my gosh, it was a roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah. And let's just plan to keep meeting, do book club meetings until that book comes out and we can start reading it. And we'll just pick different topics to talk about every week until that.
I think that sounds great.
Cool.
I'm gonna send you my cell phone number, so you can, if you want to reach out to me,
Yeah.
we can chat about whatever.
Yeah, just email it to me.
I will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we can talk about topics and all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you so much for being such a reliable, loyal reader with me. I think people love hearing your voice. And
Oh gosh, it's been so good for me because I don't know if I told you this in the beginning, but I don't read books very frequently.
yeah, I don't
And
either.
I don't know why that is. I think it's just because there's too many things I can watch.
Yeah.
And so I've, not done a lot of reading. So this has been really good for me. But the other side of it, which is even more important, is that the way that you're approaching these stories, the topics and all of this, the breaking chains part of it, of course, reaches to me personally because of my background and so forth. And so when you're reading about other people who've gone through horrible things and they come out, at the end of it in a good light and good things are happening to them, like this one, it doesn't always happen that way.
Right.
But it makes me feel, like the things that I've done in my life have all been worth it because I've tried to break the chains in my family with my kids, and there are times it's not always an easy thing, right? There are days that you can struggle with a lot of stuff. So it's been therapeutic for me in that way, and I appreciate what you're doing so much, Lynn. It's I don't have the right words for it, but I do appreciate so much what you're doing.
Well, thank you for saying that. And, one of the main principles behind it is, and I got this from my early days in 12-step programs, that when you hear other people's experiences and how they coped with things, it helps you,
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely
different
right.
different people cope in different ways. And there's
Right.
there's no set way of dealing with it. And but the first thing you have to start with is honesty. You have to be honest. You can't sit there and try to cope with a lie about your life. You got to sit there and be honest. And that's what Ariel Castro was faced with at the end, was the honesty, the raw, brutal honesty of what he did and what a horrible person he was. And that was all that was left to do. And I agree with, I think it might have been Alexandria who earlier said in the chat that it feels like those guards just wanted it to happen, and I feel like with some of these people, the guards are just like, okay, this guy's going to be here forever. So go ahead and, kind of like an Epstein type of situation, but anyway, I am so much for hearing about how other people coped with things. Amanda and Gina, you hear they're coping with things in different ways, in their different and unique ways, but they're moving forward, right? And Michelle apparently had to move her forward in her own way, and there's just not one cookie cutter pattern for how to cope with that deep level of trauma that they experienced. And I think we can all take bits and pieces of learning from what they've been through and apply it to our lives as well, and see that we've been, most of us have taken a lot for granted, have taken a lot of our lives for granted. So and I know that applies for me. So anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you again for being here. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for your conversation and your smartness. And And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Sunday and that you have a fantastic week. And you're welcome, KCG, and thanks for following along. And we will see you soon. We'll be here next week to talk about something in our book club, but not quite sure yet.
We'll talk about something.
Yeah, we'll talk about something.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye,
Talk to you
everyone.
soon. Bye.